Good afternoon and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new special event here at the Sim Racing Collective. Indeed, we're bringing this special event on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and with support from the owned racing community. We are here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, a circuit this year celebrating a centenary of power, or 100 years of racing ever since its opening as a venue all the way back in 1926. Albeit the Grand Prix course that you'll see our drivers taking on today only opened in 1960, was a means of bringing international motorsport to the Garden of England, the county of Kent. Spanning 2.3 miles in its current form, it is no longer the host of the British Formula 1 Grand Prix that it was all those many years ago, right at the peak, some would say, of Mansellmania, but also the era that everyone fondly remembers of the 1980s through to the early 1990s, and nowadays it is a circuit that plays host to the likes of GT World Challenge Europe's season opener for its sprint division, but also the likes of the Brit Car Endurance Championship and also the British Touring Car Championship. And its core, over the course of its 2.3 mile length, is a collection of 9 corners, all of them fast flowing and very rapid in nature. And what it means, combined with its short straights, its limited selection of straights, this is one of those circuits whereby track position is absolutely vital. Alternatively, you've got to be very brave and brazen under braking and ready to get your elbows out. So perhaps not the circuit you would typically associate with GT3 racing machinery, although it races here, and the slower the class of car, the more exciting the racing can be at Brands Hatch. Well, no wonder we've picked this brilliant combination, a classic combination if you will, which does see existence in real life here on an annual basis, because we are bringing the Mazda MX-5 Cup car to Brands Hatch, and rather than our typical sprint race format that many of you will be used to, instead what we're doing today is we're going to be putting on a 2-hour endurance race for your viewing pleasure, whereby we have teams of individual or 2 drivers going out there all together and looking to battle for glory. And well, the real life context of this, on an annual basis, you do see the MSVR Miata Trophy go racing at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, albeit more perhaps for its shorter races, but either way, this circuit, its narrow nature, wide enough to fit 2 or 3 Mazdas. Add to that as well the fact we've got plenty of time for the racing as well. It's going to be racing that's all about smart craft when it comes to strategy, about pure pace when it comes to being at the front, and also degree of consistency, and also there is the risk of some rain falling as well. We arrived here after a bit of a rain shower earlier on today, and those puddles are gradually drying up, but the rain could return in the final hour, particularly in the final 20 minutes, and if so, that could lead to pandemonium just as drivers think they've got everything settled and all set for conclusion. But alas, where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune today. The only place you can catch all the racing action as it unfolds, and that's on youtube.com, and search for the Sim Racing Collective or TSRC. And why not subscribe today, so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts on the Sim Racing Collective series, as we've got plenty more planned in terms of our series and events all the way through the remainder of 2026. More at the end of today's broadcast, and well, we'd love to have you subscribe so that way you don't miss a trick. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I shall be your host and commentator for this event. And in terms of our schedule, time today in UK time, so that's British Summer Time, BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1, as we can see in approximately 2 minutes time, we're making our way into our 20-minute qualifying session, where drivers are allowed to come and go as they please, trying to go for pole position. It could prove pivotal, it may not, but afterwards we'll be taking a 10-minute warm-up break to give our drivers an opportunity to take a comfort break, make sure they're all ready to go, and then we'll be making our way onto the grid for 120 minutes of race in 2 hours of Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit, all set to get underway at 25 to 2. Afterwards, of course, we will be hearing from some of our drivers if they want to volunteer for a post-race interview, but without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring up to speed with all you need to know about this event, and well, let's bring that schedule up on screen in full, because indeed we've got an absolutely brilliant schedule, and well, there's no doubt about it. Here it is in full splendour for those of you unable to see the smaller text that we had on the screen there. And well, we'd just like to give a big shout out, of course, to our series affiliates, and indeed our community affiliates. That's Narvan SimGrid, Coach Dave Delta, also their TAM Livery, and ABRUZZI Simulation and Motorsport. And also we'd like to give a big shout out to our collaborators for events such as this, and our championships, and its owned community racing. But let's talk a bit more about our host circuit, shall we? And here it is, the Brands Hatch circuit. Now located near the villages of Forkham and West Kingsdown, more commonly associated with the village of West Kingsdown that does sit just south of the circuit, and a bit of a controversial relationship the circuit does have with the village of West Kingsdown, given the fact the Grand Prix circuit can only be used for 10 major events over the course of any given year in this modern era of motorsport. That's all due to agreements between the circuit and the village in relation to noise pollution, whereby international motorsport events do see the decibel levels typically go above what is defined as not being appropriate for human hearing, somewhere in the region of around 108 to 112 decibels, and therefore an agreement was struck up in the early noughties between the village of West Kingsdown Down and the Brands Hatch circuit, saying you can only hold a grand total of 10 events at the Grand Prix circuit over the course of the year. Otherwise, all our events are held on the Indy circuit, which focuses on turns 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9 based on this diagram. But of course, we're running the full section and collection of 9 corners today. And as our drivers roar the way across the start-finish straight and head in towards turn 1, they're making the way through Paddock Hill Bend, the plummet downhill through the right-hander before roaring the way out towards Druid's Hairpin at turn 2. Exiting out to the hairpin corner, one of the primary overtaking zones of this circuit, then they make their way down into the turn 3, known as Graham Hill Bend, and a reprofiled Graham Hill Bend ever since the late 90s. And as the drivers come charging through that left-hander, then make the way all the way out towards 30s at turn 4, also known as the corner without an apex. In fact, the apex is so late and you don't see it at all until you're 75% of the way through the corner, so it is a corner all about confidence under braking and proving that you can trail brake better than anybody else. Next, run all the way up towards what we Hawthorns Bend at turn 5, albeit along the Pilgrim's Drop, that long stretch of tarmac there, one of the longest straights on the circuit, if not the longest, and we can expect some overtaking opportunities as they make the way up towards Hawthorns Bend at turn 5, and uphill they shall as they head into the heavily cambered right-hander, before roaring the way along Derek Minter Straight, connecting turns 5 and 6, and they'll be then in towards Westfield Bend. Sweeping their way through, it's in the downhill plunge, coming through Dingledale and uphill into Sheen at turn 7, and as they exit the fast right-hander, we can only go one wide, it's then into Stirling's at turn 8, a 90-degree left-hander that's heavily cambered. Then they'll make the way down the short stretch in towards Clearways at turn 9, to complete a lap and do it all over again, or to finally see that finish line after 120 minutes of racing. Now, as for our rules and regulations, we're not going to bore you with this too much, but here's the format and rules of what you need to know. Qualifying 20 minutes in duration, the race 120 minutes. Setup-wise, everyone's running a fixed setup. So this is all about the driver and what they can extract out of the Mazda MX-5 Cup car. And in terms of our fuel limit, we do have one imposed at 50%, which will require several pit stops over the course of the racing. So therefore, this is going to be a race that is dictated just as much by its strategy as it by those who are the quickest on pace. And on top of that, we have one fast spare available should anybody need to use it. And in terms of our start, it will be a rolling start, not a standing start there, so everyone gets away as safely as possible. And in terms of our instant count, it's 40 instant points to get a drive-through penalty, and should you accrue 10 more every time beyond that, you will get a subsequent drive-through penalty. There's no disqualifications, and that's at discretion of the Racing League admins. But without further ado, that's the rules and regulations and everything you need to know. But the one thing we all want to show is what's going on out at circuit. And so it is time to make our way into this qualifying session. And well, already 2 minutes have passed. We've got 18 minutes to go. And all the drivers right now making their way on around. And well, we do look to Kieran Sharp there. And well, you'll notice there as he makes his way around. Goodness me, that livery is making me grin like a Cheshire cat already. The Paul Walsh Fan Club livery. And I can promise you, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't paid him to put that on the car. I haven't paid him to run the team name as the Paul Walsh Fan Club. And you will notice on what is the bonnet of the car, he's actually got a picture of my face on there. And indeed, a complete surprise when I found out this morning that that's the livery he'd gone for. And that was the team name as well. And this event all about having a good degree of fun, to be fair, for all our drivers. And well, a big thank you to Kieran. I am slightly embarrassed in the commentary booth, but good embarrassment, I should be clear. And Kieran is potentially one of the favourites today to be right up there competing for what will be a victory. But of course, we also do have a West Ham fan out there in the form of Harry Fletcher. And well, he'll be going for gold today. Remembering, of course, that he was recently crowned the 2026 Motorsport UK Esports Rookie Sports Car Cup champion in a season which was absolutely dominated by him the first half of the season, and it was a shaky second half of the season, but he survived well to make sure he came away victorious. And we've got Harry back on the grid, and he'll be looking to try and showcase his supremacy in the Mazda MX-5, and we look forward to seeing him take it to some veterans of the car, including Kieran Sharp, and also none other than Andrew Pike, who we see here for the Sim Racing Collective, run the standard livery for the team. And Andrew, well, I caught up with him in the build-up to today, and he was saying to me, in terms of practice, I've done the expected requirement here at TSRC, and that is none. So therefore it does mean that Andrew Pike, I think he's made a bit of a gentleman's agreement as well, potentially, with Kieran Sharp and some of the other Sim Racing Collective drivers or the staff members who are racing this, which is they might be considering all starting from the back and using qualifying just as their practice session. We'll have to wait and see whether the gentleman agreement holds or not, or whether some of them are accidentally set laps. But either way, as Pike makes his way on through, well, we also do welcome some fresher faces to the grid, perhaps including Dave Wood in the number 13, as Yuri Shura sets the benchmark of the pace, but Dave Wood goes even faster. An impressive lap from him, no doubt about it, and that's going to be a 1 minute 39.99 to nearest 100th. As you can see, they're going for a bit of a splash of water coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, but that's where the limited amount of standing water is at the moment. So slick tyres on these cars, no doubt about it. They've just got to be a bit careful when they do hit a small puddle of water. But if you are tuning in, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi in the YouTube chat. We're always happy to see a good number of you in there. Let us know how you're doing today, what you've been up to this weekend, and let us know who you're cheering on, of course. I do appreciate there's a few fans out there for all the different drivers up and down the grid, including none other than Dave Wood. But Wood right now will know that he needs to do a bit more perhaps to beat Yuri Shura, and the only community racing driver making his way on down and the run through Pilgrim's Drop, and that very aggressive plunge underneath the crossover bridge there, which is used for Marshal League cars as well as for spectators. And right now, Wood and Shura together all using the draft off of one another. Now, how important is qualifying going to be, I hear some of you ask? Well, the short answer is perhaps not as important as it could be given the length of the race. Although you do want to qualify towards the front, you don't want to be towards the back of the field, because otherwise you give yourself even more work to do in terms of carving your way past other cars. But as we do look to John Metcalf here, making his way on through, an absolute hot rod of a car there, and I say that right now with the lovely livery he's got on the car. And what is it they say? Painting flames on the car, it makes the car go 5% faster. Well, I don't think that's the way it works out in reality, but I do think that lovely livery car there, it makes him look as though he's going even faster than he is, to be fair. And we look forward to seeing what John's first lap on the board is going to be shortly. As we also do see Charlie Morgan make his way around, part of the only community racing teams out there. And well, the number 69 driver looking nice, man. And that livery definitely looking dashing as he charges his way in towards Hawthorns. As he does so, well, a few more times still being waited on from drivers. We've only had 5 drivers set valid lap time so far. Look to Jay Walsh, no relation to me, I should point out there, so therefore I'm not going to give him family preference, even though he shares the same surname as myself. But as he comes over through the right-hander there, going through what'll be Sheen, the corner to catch out so many, and he gets caught out by it by going a bit too wide there. Named after, of course, the infamous Barry Sheen, indeed one of the stars of Brands Hatch, indeed UK motorsport, over the course of what was the pre-modern era, if you will, so looking more towards the 1980s, if my memory serves me correctly, being very capable on 2 wheels rather than 4. Indeed, you will find that a good number of corner names, not just at this circuit, but at circuits around the United Kingdom, are dedicated to individuals just as impressive on a motorbike as they were in racing in cars, including none other than Agostini, of course, but that'd be the hairpin turn number 4 at Snetterton, based in Norwich, the best part of 120 miles northeast of the Brands Hatch circuit. But as Walsh makes his way through, right now, yet to get a time on the board, still trying to find a bit more time out there, and invalidating laps is quite easy to do here at the Brands Hatch circuit, given it is one of those circuits where you want to abuse every millimetre of the tarmac, and including the curbs, but go too far, and you're very quickly reminded of what you've done. But as Dave Wood comes through Sheeton this time, looking very nice, they're a very progressive line, that's what you want. Makes his way out, turn 8 and down towards 9, picking up the distant toe there of both Yuri Shura, and I believe just in front is John Shorter. I think Yuri is the leading driver of the group, the Dutchman, and then you do have the 2 Britons running in pursuit. And well, here they come towards the timing line. And what's your number 36 driver going to do at this time? Does he find a way to improve? Does he not? And the answer is going to be he does. He improves by 3 tenths, but then suddenly improving by 4 tenths, Dave Wood. So Wood right now definitely getting it absolutely spot on. But Harry Fletcher heads towards the line. He has gone purple in the middle sector. He's by himself, so he's got no slipstream to work with. And what can he do here? We know he's quick in this car. And the answer is going to be that's second fastest. That's very impressive from Fletcher. 2.5 tenths quicker than anybody else, excluding Dave Wood. And well, understandably now, he can try and push himself towards that front row. As he tries to do so, we also do look here to none other than a Ukrainian star. And this is Nazar. I do believe how you say his name. I'm just double checking the pronunciation there. It's Nazari Nish. And well, good to see him make his way around there. And the number 59 driver, lovely livery car, running the colours of the Ukrainian flag there. And well, of course, no political statements being made here at the Sim Racing Collective, but good to see him racing out there, given the ongoing situation between Russia and Ukraine. And well, sim racing can bring people together, which is what it's all about. Indeed, sim racing transcends borders and transcends politics. But as your number 59 driver makes way onwards, yet to get a lap on the board, but still working to do so. But as he heads on around, we also do look to Max Moron, another face that you'll be very familiar with, the driver, of course, in the Rookie Sports Car Cup. And, well, as he makes way around in the 89, if you're wondering why he's running an all-white livery, it is sadly due to a slight technical mishap that has occurred. A lot of drivers at the last minute realising because this was being run as a teams event, not used to applying liveries to cars, and to be fair, we've had to do some work in the background to get some of the decals to load properly at last minute as well. We're not innocent of it all. It does mean that a few teams have not been able to run their liveries because they're not used to a team event and they haven't quite got things set up correctly. But still, we do see the all pure white number 89 of Moran as he makes his way through the final corner. And as he does so, why don't we get an on-board lap with him and see what he can do here around the absolutely wonderful Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. To make his way up towards turn 1, cutting as far to the right as possible there to shorten the run to the timing line as he breaks his way into Paddock Hill Bend, breaking about 100 metres from corner apex, dancing his way in third gear as he makes way out, hits the puddle of water, wipers go on there for a brief moment to get any water off the front, and now breaking his way down in towards Druids Bend. but turning in there as aggressively as possible, really trying to get the rear end to come round as he now heads down the hill and towards Graham Hill Bend, named after the late great. On the brakes here for that left-hander. So difficult. You're essentially braking, pointing away from the apex of the corner, but you've got to turn into a very sharp 90-degree bend. But now getting ready for Surtees. Onto the brakes he goes at the start of the outside curbing. That's essentially where he also puts the brakes on, and he eventually finds the apex curb and now makes his way all the way up towards Hawthorns. So onto the Grand Prix loop we go. Left the Indy loop behind, and as he now makes his way up towards it, coming through Pilgrim's Drop, and now gets him ready for a corner where you only want to tap the brakes slightly. It's uphill, it's cambered, so therefore tap the brakes to the 50 board, drop a gear into third, and chuck the car in, and then get on the throttle as early as you possibly can, and let the camber of the road push you through. Now to a much flatter corner, coming into what is at Westfield Bend, a corner where it's all about hopping over the curb and carrying speed, and now flat out he'll go, all the way down in towards Dingle Dell, then up into Sheen, blinds there as he brakes into the corner, mounts the curb. Does he keep it just on the road? Well, two-wheeling there, but I think that might have invalidated the lap. And now coming through Sterling's that left-hander. It's all about abusing the camber of the road again. Lovely line there from Moron, but unfortunately, I think he has ruined this lap as a result of his excursion at what was the Sheen curve. But we'll carry on board as he heads through Clearways and coming out to the corner there. Takes a bit too much curb. It understeers the car wide. And well, from Moron, definitely a bit of a scrappy lap. Not perfect, but he's definitely trying to push on there to find a bit more time right at the end of this session. Albeit we still do have 9 minutes to go. It's by no means over, but it just goes to show you how challenging it can be and to get a good lap together here at the course as he makes his way on around. But as more drivers continue to try and get some laps together, we now have 13 drivers with a lap on the board. Ben Holmes is one of them, and a very lovely livery, an orange machine there for the number 500 driver, as we do see the distant cameras following him around, swapping places there with John Metcalf on the road, and Holmes right now on a personal best. He's been personal best in all of his sectors so far, and well, what's it going to be in the final sector here? Does he find a way to improve? And the answer is going to be, well, he's not pulling over to the inside, so therefore he's going for a longer run, so he thinks there's an even faster lap there. But as he crosses the timeline this time around, he does not improve. So I think he invalidated that lap, and that's why he was over to the outside there to take more speed onto the straight into Paddock Hill Bend rather than the optimum line to get the quickest lap time on the board. But meanwhile, Nazariya Nish has made his way all the way up to 7th place now. So number 59 driver continues to come on strong as he makes one through, improving in the latter portion lap slightly. And is that going to translate into more time? No, he's still 1.2 seconds off of the pole time, now owned by Harry Fletcher. So it goes the way of Fletcher. Fletcher continues to pick up the pace. They all are out there, to be fair, our drivers. Absolutely brilliant to see how all these lap times coming down. And of course, the interesting part of this is going to be that as our drivers get quicker and quicker and find more and more time, well, the fuel tanks are going down in these cars as well, and it's only going to serve to completely intensify the qualifying session. As all these drivers, of course, understand, we realise the fact that qualifying is just one part of the story, and the reality of it is it can be a lot more different with regards to what they might be able to achieve when they do go green flag racing. Now, we are in the background just working on a slight, what is erroneous item with regards to what is a bit of driver information. So you might see the overlay refresh itself very shortly, and I think it does that. There it goes. That's on our end, not on yours. We're just adjusting what was a bit of incorrect driver data, and that may happen every so often, but don't panic. Let's assure you of that. You may see it just once or twice, but after that we should be all okay. Now, we are going to show you the team names there as well on the left-hand side of your screen, as much as we have shown you the driver names. And right now the team Harry Fletcher driver of Harry Fletcher carries on, and we'll own Racing's Dave Wood. Well, he's currently the second fastest out there, and you do have the Honda Harris racing machine, and I believe that is the Nando Harris racing machine there, and that's none other than Paul Sims, who's currently the third fastest ahead of Onid Races, the sweaty machine, and that's Yuri Shura. And completing that top at the moment, the top 5 at the moment is Charlie Morgan for the Stance Nation part of Onid Racing. Some very inventive team names out there, no doubt about it, and I suspect there's a few more inventive ones, albeit they're not showing in the time out at the moment, but they will come along eventually. And well, it's always funny to see some of the team names out there, particularly when it's not a serious event, although everyone I think will be taking this quite seriously once we do go green flag racing. And we'll be excited to see who exactly is going to come away as potentially the winner today. But as we do show you the driver names again for now. We look to Max Moran for Sim Motorsport Endurance, still trying to find a bit more time. It's not coming to him as a lot of cloud comes back over the circuit. Well, hopefully that's not the sign of some rain to fall, otherwise that's going to really end this qualifying session and force our drivers not to be able to put any more times together, because of course when rain falls you just simply lose all the pace out of the track. We do say hello there to Max Braun Racing in the YouTube chat, and hello to you, good sir, although he won't be saying hello at the moment, understanding, because he is in the car. And we also do say hello to Mogzilla there, who says good luck TSRC drivers, bad luck everyone else. Well, definitely there saying who he wants to win is Bobby Moss. Well, of course, and some of our drivers there will be very grateful for that support, and others will want to try and prove a point, which is they're now going to see if they can beat the TSRC machines. As we look to MVG Motorsports Jay Walsh as he goes on to a lap. And without further ado, let's ride on board as he takes us around for a fly under rather cloudy skies now here in the Garden of England. So, as Walsh makes his way in towards turn number 1 and glides his way through the right-hander as best he possibly can, well, definitely right now making sure to hit those apexes as precisely as possible. He's just got to be careful there as he comes in towards Drury's Bend, because with the overspeed of the car in front, that's always going to help just hurt a little bit in braking and just cause him to carry a slight bit more speed by comparison with usual. But no sign of any issues there as he now rolls his way through that left-hander, although battling there with a bit of snap what was oversteer, and now coming in towards Surtees corner. Going through the corner here from the left-hander, and right now being as smooth as he can. We do apologise there for the overlay just refreshing itself, but that's not going to happen again. And Walsh now makes his way all the way up towards Hawthorns. As he does, completing the Indy portion of the circuit and looking quite quick, although I get the feeling right now with the slight mistake he made at the Druids hairpin at the start of this lap, he is going to be able to try and make up some time here, but gets it absolutely spot on going through Hawthorns, staying in 4th gear rather than dropping to 3rd, so deciding there that the higher gear means he can get on the throttle earlier, but he has less engine power available to him, but sometimes staying on higher gear actually helps you feel a bit more confident with the control of the car. Going all the way through Sheen, and as he does so, bounces over the curb there, takes it perfectly, and now over to the right-hand side in towards Sterling's, and rolling his way through that left-hander, taking all the apex curb and plenty more. He'll get away with that, and now heading down the final stretch in towards Clearway's corner, and the driver he's following is going to also stay on the racing line there. I do believe that's the car of Elliot Lewis, following the team Elliot Lewis number 16, and here they go towards the timing line. And what's it going to be for Walsh then as he comes on through? The answer, well, it is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, he has improved in the middle sector, didn't improve in the first sector as much, and in the end for Jay Walsh, it is going to be a personal best. It's a 40.61. He does go 10th with that, but he's only the best part of 400ths faster than Elliot Lewis. These two working together as much as possible, and well, it's the classic, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, because now for Jay Walsh, he's going to help Elliot Lewis try and find a bit more lap time. But still, more times coming from drivers. Luke Webb is the lowest placed driver at the moment, but no lap time set by Kieran Sharp, Tom Davidson or Andrew Pike. And well, I've just seen what Andrew Pike's team name is, and that is the Sim Racing Collective Harden Long Mineshaft. And, well, I don't know how many times we're going to be allowed to say that live on air today, ladies and gents. And have we just simply got this broadcast completely demonetised and completely made to be 18 rated with number 57 driver there of Andrew Pike, who's currently in the pit lane. He's done his practice laps. He's going no further. There you can see him parked up. And Tom Davidson and Kieran Sharp, they've all adhered to the TSRC Gentleman's Agreement with the Climax Racing driver there alongside Kieran Sharp opting not to set any qualifying laps. They're going to try and come through from the back of the field and with this 18-car order. But as Harry Fletcher right now, looking to make sure he stays at the very top of the field. 2 minutes or so to go. Here he heads down and towards what will be Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to have one more lap available after this. I do believe they have overtime available to them as well, so it's not the case that as soon as that clock goes to 0, that's it, you're done. You can potentially get one more lap in. But noting, of course, that no drivers really come into the pit lane to put a fresh set of tyres or fuel in. The tyres on these MX-5s do normally last the best part of around about half an hour to 45 minutes before they really start to feel warm. And well, we have got a relatively cool circuit here today as we show you the temperature and the weather at the top centre of your screen, whereby we've got very strong winds, and that's 31 kilometres an hour wind at the moment, depending on where you look. Track temperature of 26 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius your ambient temperature. It's actually quite a comfortable track to drive on. These tyres will be doing very well in this qualifying session, so you probably only need the one set of tyres for qualifying. And the fuel tank, well, we are expecting that fuel tank to last not a whole hour, but it should be somewhere close to that 50% fuel tank, and it will mean that our drivers there have no worries about trying to put some more fuel in the car for qualifying. If anything, They want to get all the laps they can in before the end of qualifying to get that fuel tank down as quickly as possible. But we do look to FD Racing's Mickey Ford. He's been on the grid with us for a few seasons in our different series, including, of course, our Mazda MX-5 series, which I do believe we opened up this year with, if my memory serves me correctly. An absolutely epic season of racing that was, and the FD Racing teams definitely did well for themselves there. But right now, as the 266 driver makes one around, he's currently 14th fastest, with a 1 minute 43.40. He is 1.5 tenths off of David Drury for DHD Racing in 13th. But can he jump ahead into 13th place? And the answer is going to be yes, he can. He beats Drury to 13th with the DHD Racing driver in the pits. But as we see Bogzilla there asking, what is Andrew Pike's team name again? Oh, goodness me. It's Harden Long Manshaft for the Sim Racing Collective. That's his name. And, well, I don't think that's completely translated to German. Well, it may translate into something in German, as we do see the Nando Horace machine of Paul Sims make its way around. And, well, that's a spin on Lando Norris's name, no doubt about it. And I get the feeling that Lando Norris will appreciate that. Although, a little bit of trivia for you, I always, for some reason, in my head, get Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris confused. So every so often I do end up saying Fernando Norris. I don't know why. It's just something that's happened in the last 6 months for me mentally. As we do see there, Paul Sims trying to park up and toes the pit lane. With checker flags out, as all drivers make the way on around, we do see that we've got a bit of a message with regards to getting what is a file there from Max Moron, his livery file. So we'll see what we can do with regards to that for you, Max. No promises, we should point out, but we will do everything we can to get that loaded for you before we do go racing. So bear with us as we do come to the end of this qualifying session. There we do have none other than Ben Holmes make his way on around. And, well, not too long before all these drivers now said and done with their qualifying laps. But what can Ben Holmes do here? He's currently the 12th fastest. He heads towards that timing line, and the answer is going to be, he does find a personal best out there. It's a 41.352, but it's not going to be enough to move him beyond 12th place at this time. So stays where he is, but finds a bit more time. Harry Fletcher has taken the pole position by looks as he heads into the pit lane. I look at my content booth window, and John Shorter decides it's time to cool and calm down. He'll be starting at best 8th in this race today, albeit I think starting right in the middle of the pack there. He's going to have to find his elbows coming out alongside the likes of Sean Metcalf, Only Racing needs a swear jar, and also the Stance Nation machine of Charlie Morgan. But we look to the scenic view. That is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Fletcher takes pole position and joined on the front row by his rookie Sports World Cup rival of Max Ron. The two of them definitely had some elbows out moments and some nose to tail bumper moments towards the end of the 2026 season, the Motorsport UK Esports Championship. And we're just going to go a little bit quiet for a brief moment as we do see if we can load Max Ron's livery onto the car. So bear with us. We are just going to welcome that as we do head into the warm-up period. Indeed, this qualifying session at its close at the moment, so we are just waiting for that transition over, ladies and gentlemen. We are still just working on the slight livery adjustment in the background as we do go into the 10-minute warm-up session. And we'll be right back one moment, ladies and gentlemen, as we do just try to deploy a little fix with regards to a livery or two with regards to our drivers' cars. And good news, ladies and gentlemen, we return, and I think we have resolved some of the livery issues out there. We always want to try and get our drivers' liveries represented wherever possible. But with that, what we're going to do, again, we have got a bit of time before we do go green flag racing, is we're just going to try and catch up with some of our drivers out there, including, well, I think we're going to get a patch through live from the car from this man. Harry Fletcher makes his way around. So let's just jump on board with him as he makes his way through the corners and see what Harry's got to say. And as we do get a patch through to his car, Harry, good afternoon for you. You got time to chat?
Yeah, of course I have. I've also got time to take you on board as well if you wanted to.
Oh, go for it. Why not take us around for a lap? Tell us what it's like taking the car around the circuit.
Well, it's a bit different to how the track is when I went up there Wednesday, as this stand is from 2009. But as we go into paddock hill bend now, braking just before the 50, third gear, put her in nice. Try and meet the apex, use the downhill slope. Now on the run up to Druids, brake as late as you dare down into first. Try and just nail the exit and now be back over to the right for Graham Hill Bend. Tricky one this with the puddle on the inside. Second gear, run it out wide. Now back up the third into Surtees now, late apex. Second, prioritise the exit for the Hawthorne straight. All the way up to fourth now. It will be good for chance for overtaking spots and a lot of slipstream along here. Braking just around about the 50-metre board, down into third, light on the brakes, get on the throttle as early as you can, run it out wide, hold third, keep it there, 50 board, chuck her in on the brakes, really use the exit. Now into Dingledale or Shin Curve as some call it. Third gear, demolish the curb and run her out wide. Now Sterling, some people take it in second, I prefer third. Use the camber, get on throttle early. Don't go too wide, there are track limits there. And on the run to clear ways, braking just by the tarmac on the left. Keep her in third if you can. And run her out wide. And then hug the wall tight as it's the shortest way round Brands Hatch. It is. And that is a lap of Brands Hatch GP.
Oh, thank you, Harry. Really do appreciate you taking us around for that lap. And you've put it on pole position for today's race. I mean, are you expected to be able to run away with it, given the slipstream nature of these MX-5s?
I'm not expecting to, as I saw Kieran putting down some mega laps in the 38s. This is a home track for me. I know Brands pretty well. So we hope to convert pole, but I don't think we'll run away with it.
Well, I'll have to wait and see. And strategy-wise, have you got any idea what sort of strategy we're looking at, how often you may need to pit given the fuel tank?
We might expect to see 2 starts, but it'll be interesting because you don't need a full tank on the one of the 2 stints. You won't need a full tank for this one, so it'll be interesting to see. I can't give away too much at the minute. But yeah, tyres expect that every time. It will be.
Oh, I really appreciate the insights. With that, Harry, we'll leave you there for it for now. Good luck in the race, and thank you for taking us around and for your thoughts on today's race.
No worries, thank you. Have a good one.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Harry Fletcher, and really good to hear from there his insights, talking about the strategy, and also getting a full on-board lap there, and really open up our eyes to just how aggressive you have to be around the circuit, but also, of course, the fact that he's able to give us that on-board lap, talk us through it whilst doing it. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. But what we're also going to do is we're going to catch a word from a Ukrainian driver who joins the grid, and I do believe that is none other than Nazary Nish, as he does join me now from the pit lane. Nazary, have you got time for a quick chat?
Sure, yeah.
So, looks as though a good qualifying session from yourself. Qualifying towards the middle of the field. I mean, are you excited for where you started from, or do you think you could have qualified better?
I mean, I don't really expect like something crazy from myself. So basically anything goes. I mean, if I don't freaking implode, it's absolutely all right.
Oh, fair play. So as you stay out of trouble and have fun, that's the main thing. And I've got to ask, do you regularly race the MX-5 on iRacing, or do you race other classes?
I mainly race the MX-5s in iRacing. I mean, when I see a championship with MX-5s on iRacing, I'm literally signing up into that race. Well, in like 2 seconds.
Oh, fantastic. I do love the enthusiasm for the MX-5. Oh, go on, go on.
I absolutely love the MX-5s in iRacing.
Oh, brilliant. And with regards to the race itself, a much longer race compared to the qualifying session, 120 minutes. Have you set yourself a target of where you would like to finish?
Not really, but I'm expecting like midfield, I don't know. Well, probably midfield. Also, hopefully, there will be rain because I'm pretty good at rain. Oh, look at that. There will be rain at 3:15 p.m.
Oh, well, sounds as though confirmation of some rain coming later on in the race. That's definitely going to make it interesting, and it sounds as though you're very excited for the wet weather. Do you consider yourself a bit of a rain master?
Well, kind of. I don't know.
Oh, no worries at all. Well, with that, Nazari, we'll leave it there for now. We'll let you get prepared, but thank you for joining me for a pre-race interview. Good luck in the race.
Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, whilst not in the car, down in the pit lane there, so just communicating to us from short band radio up into the commentary booth, that was none other than Nazari Nish for the Dobry Ranok Racing team. And I do believe that translates from Russian or Ukrainian literally into good morning. Well, he'll be looking to see if he can have a good afternoon, as we do see Kieran Sharp heading around, and Harry Fletcher mentioning to us only moments ago, and I do apologise, I didn't say good luck to Harry Fletcher when we did leave him in the interview room. I felt a little bit bad now, but of course, we wanted to make sure if we could catch our interview of both our volunteers there who've offered up their time. And well, Harry Fletcher talking about the fact that the TSRC drivers, the likes of Kieran Sharp, Tom Doherty, and Andrew Pike, all looking very rapid out there. Not setting any lap times, of course, as the hard and long manshaft driver, I almost said mineshaft there. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be getting this wrong a few times today. Well, the Team TSRC driver definitely making a bit of a ham sandwich of Paddock Hill Bend, and he was the fastest for a brief moment there, because I've seen a number of you asking who's the fastest team out at the moment, and including Gavin Gardner. And well, we also say hello to a few more of you there, including a suggestion in the YouTube chat from Mikey4 saying you guys should host a 24-hour endurance race. And we'll never say never, to be fair, as Jerry Shearer decides to park himself into the grass there coming out of Westfield Bend and converts himself into a weed. Oh, he's going to tow his way back to the pit lane as we see Charlie Morgan make his way out. And we also do say hello to none other than Jakub Lusnak there, who says, here for John Shorter and the team. Let's go, boys. Indeed, we're excited to see John out there. And in terms of our 2 driver teams you need to keep your eyes out for, we only have a couple of them, and well, one of them is the number 22 for RPMS Simsport. I believe it's still the number 22. Let me just double check that, because there have been some mix-ups of the door names, the door numbers right at the end, just as we got ready to go racing. But either way, you will see a car there of Richard Phillips and John Shorter for RPMS Simsport, and also you'll see the car of Gumi Design for Kevin Riesma and Dominic Gallo if they are still here today, although I haven't seen them turn up at the circuit, to be fair. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to head to the grid. The warm-up is complete. Everyone's itching to go. We're itching to see how this all goes down. It's time for 2 hours of racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And so, as our drivers make the way onto the grid, they'll line up for a one and only race today. Taking pole position and in the car, first and foremost, all these drivers. It's Harry Fletcher for Team Harry Fletcher, and he will be joined on that front row by Max Braun for the Sim Motorsport Endurance team. And then behind him on row number 2, it's going to be Dave Wood for the Only Racing and Drone Boy team, and he'll be followed up by none other than Paul Sims for Nando Horace Racing. That's all part of the game then, to see whether the Nando Horace Racing driver can split his way and clear his way past the Only Racing drivers, because behind him he does have Yuri Shura starting in 5th place there, and well, the Sweat driver is his nickname, starts off your 3rd row. The Dutchman joined 2 tenths behind there by Charlie Morgan, his Only Racing peer, albeit it will be the Stance Nation driver there starting in 6th. 7th on the grid, it's going to be John Metcalf. Only Racing needs a swear jar, and I suspect there might be a few swear words underneath what will be his visor as he goes racing today if he needs a swear jar, and he'll be joined on that full throw of the grid there by Richard Phillips, while the two drivers in what will be the RPM SimSport machine, the other one of course being John Shorter, but we do believe, as we've been informed, it is Richard Phillips who takes the car first out of the circuit, but don't quote us on that. And then we have the man we spoke to only months ago, the second of our pre-race interviews, Nazarene Nish, and the Dobry Ranok, or the Good Morning driver from Ukraine, starts in 9th place and completes in the top 10. It's Jay Walsh for MVG Motorsport. But will he have night vision goggles out there? If so, he doesn't need them on because it's daylight. And then we do see Elliot Lewis starting in 11th there for Team Elliot Lewis, ahead of Ben Holmes, Onid Racing, the gold team driver. But he hasn't got a gold star when it comes to that qualifying performance, only achieving 12th place. But then again, a very tight field, and he'll be looking to go for gold when we go green flag racing. Starting 13th, we'll have Mickey Ford for FD Racing, and he'll be joined on that 7th row by David Drury for DHD Racing. And then we do see not setting, well, in fact, the last one tries to set a lap time there, getting ahead of myself. It will be the late entry today of Team Luke Webb, and he will be starting 15th for Luke, and he will be joined on that 8th row by the first and non-qualifiers in terms of not setting a time. They're all TSRC drivers. Andrew Pyatt for TSRC Hard and Long Manshaft, and then we do have starting 17th on the grid, Climax Racing's Tom Davidson, and then it will be Kieran Sharp for the Porsche Fan Club, who complete the starting order in 18th place. But expect them to come charging through the field, ladies and gentlemen, when we do go green flag race. And they've got a lot of pace there, but they've decided, out of fairness, given they are the organisers of the event, not to put a qualifying time in, and they want to be all in the spirit of fun of going to come through the field safely but swiftly. But as the field makes its way away on this partial formation lap, and we do say hello there to Charlie Morgan in YouTube chat, who realises he was on stream when he decided to turn his car into a bit of a weed in the grass. Well, all the drivers make the way around right now. Indeed, no take backsies. Max Brown's livery you can see loaded there as well. The white car now turned into the yellow with white stripes car. They're all absolutely itching to go. We're itching to go here for 2 hours of racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as Harry Fletcher makes way through the final quarter, it's over to the West Ham United fan to take us to the green for 2 hours of racing. And just like that, he is go, go, go already. Fletcher decides not to wait, but just simply go straight away. And as they roar the way into turn number 1, 2 hours ticks away as Fletcher leads the field into the opening quarter. But look behind, you see Dave Wood there, puts himself right in the middle of the road, trying to say to the drivers behind, there's no way through for you. As Yuri Shura makes a good start there, and the owner's racing driver all onto the back of his teammate. Albeit Hando Norris Racing's Paul Sims right there with them as they go too wide for a Drury's bend, but Sims is going to be elbowed out wide there a little bit on the outside line. Further back, John Short of RPM SimSport find himself getting clear of the MVG and Dobry Ranok machines. Walsh on the inside of Nish, and coming through that left-hander right now. Good bit of defensive driving there from Walsh, as he now has Nish trying to go for the switchback here in towards Surtees. Now Nish is going to go for it here, loves the MX-5 and hoping for some wet weather later on. And well, the Ukrainian driver there going for a brilliant move. Can he get it done? The answer is not quite, but he definitely tries to make that happen. A bit further back, Team Luke Webb. And that is Luke Webb making his way onwards here, but he finds himself in a bit of a big scrap here, 3 wide almost, as we do see Kieran Sharp right now and Andrew Pyatt both try to look away past the Team Luke Webb number 174. It's not going to work out at the moment, or is it? Sharp tries to go all the way around the outside, and when he does do so, finds the speed and gets the job done just like that, as Andrew Pyatt also follows through. I think here everyone now trying to get into a bit of a draft, as David Drury's had a bit of a slow start by comparison, and he's dropped all the way to the back of the field, has the number 15 drive, having started in 14th. But to the front we go, and towards the end of the open lap, and Harry Fletcher going a bit too wide there. Well, he's eager, no doubt about it, to make a breakaway, but the problem is perhaps putting a bit too much pressure on himself as he comes in towards the final corner for the first time. So, one lap is complete, and it's repulsed to Harry Fletcher, who continues to lead, closely tailed by Max Veron to 3/10 of a second. Now it's a good 1 second gap to Dave Wood, who you can see there in the white and red machine. The red towards the rear of the car there in third, ahead of the Dutchman of Yuri Shura. And the Onid Racing driver continues to follow close with Paul Sims running in 5th place. And then we do have John Metcalf. Oh, goodness me! Who's that that's gone around? That's Charlie Morgan! And some of the field had to take evasive action there, but Morgan's got it wrong, coming over the brow of Paddock Hill Bend, and the car goes spinning around. Jay Walsh had to take evasive action. Did he survive it? Yes, he did. There is Walsh, but he's picked up damage, and unfortunately, I think he's going to tow to pit lane as a result of it there. So we said he survived it. In reality, he hasn't actually, and he has fallen victim to the circumstances. Let's get a replay of that when we can, but what that has suddenly done is to completely turn the field on around, and we'll come back to recap of the field shortly. There's more fighting here as Tom Davidson right now pushes his way through. Kieran Sharp follows the Climax Racing driver through with the old MTV livery there. For those of you who were born in the 90s, you'll probably remember growing up looking at the MTV channels, and also some of the others out there listening to the music videos or watching the music videos, as that's what you used to do back then. Nowadays everything's on YouTube and MTV doesn't really exist anymore. And well, is it going to be Kieran Sharp here looking to try and make a pounce in the MTV cribs? I don't think so here. He's not going to be on the show as he makes one around and instead has to wait a little bit longer. And David Drury will now find himself getting on the attack here versus Luke Webb. And can he look for the move on the inside? No, not quite. He's going to have to wait just that little bit longer as he tucks back in behind. But we do have two drivers in the pit lane, both towed. And that's Charlie Morgan for Only Races Stance Nation, and also MVG Motorsports Jay Walsh getting caught up in quite a sizable incident. But a replay of that is coming up, as well as some other big moments in the start of the race. But right now, let's stay in the live time and see what else is unfolding here. And there we can see Ben Holmes having to keep Tom Davidson and Kieran Sharp behind as already the free TSRC machines, because Andrew Pike is almost with them again. They are now pressuring the Only Racing Gold Team driver into the next lap. As in front, that's Nish there, a bit worried about what's to come, but here comes Davidson on the inside, making a move and gets it done just like that. And well, I think there was a question of when, not if, that was going to happen, given the pace that Davidson's bringing to the table. But if Holmes is a smart man, what he'll do here is just simply tuck in behind, not fight it too hard, and he knows there's a long race to go. And races like this aren't just won on pace, they are won on consistency. And should that rain that Nish has seen in the schedule, that was for 3:15 this afternoon sim time, so most likely in the next hour and 15 minutes or so, should that rain come as expected, it could completely turn this upside down before we do get to the finish, particularly in the final half an hour, because what we've got to remember is the fact, as Harry Fletcher said, we are looking most likely at a two-stop race where it'll be, if fuel goes in the car, will be less fuel in the second or at least one of the pit stops, and also expecting the tyres to be changed, but an extra pit stop to change tyres. Well, some drivers might be thinking, how do we game the strategy in order to make the most, if the rain is to come, of not having to make a third pit stop? That will be the hard part. So do you actually prematurely start to really aggressively fuel save? You take all the pace out of your race in the dry for the full process that is, you will be going longer later on in the race, and therefore you can get to when the rain arrives, should it come. Remember, that is a forecast, but that forecast is constantly being updated. And Sonny, the rain that could be coming in an hour's time, if the wind changes direction, it may not be coming in 30 minutes from that time. So I have to see what happens as Mickey Ford has towed to the pit lane as well. So a bit of drama for Mickey Ford, not the way anybody's wanted it to go, as the big scramble goes on here. And Davidson clearing Holmes, but now having to find his way past Nazari and Nish as the Ukrainian driver has to defend. We look back for the rear of your 9th place runner as he heads up towards turn number 1 this time. Davidson looks one way, meanwhile Nish puts the car in the middle of the road and says to him, try it if you will. And well, in the end, you can see there Kieran Sharp cut through, Ben Holmes being attacked there by Andrew Pike at the rear of the picture, and Pike on the inside there in the TSRC machine. That's a big dive from very far back there. He's put a first class stamp on that, has Davidson, and that causes Nish to outbrake himself in towards Drury. And now there's Kieran Sharp, too wide to come down the hill, and as they fight their way in towards the left-hander, Nish defending, but I think Sharp here looking all the way round, and well, Kieran Sharp says whatever Davidson does, I'm going to do as well. It's going to be the reverse Moses manoeuvre here, and it's going to be 3-on-1 as they all make the way in towards Surtees Bend, and in the end, I don't think Nazari Nish knows which way to look, left and right. Oh, and Holmes makes contact there with Pike, but in the end, the hard and long mineshaft machine holds off what will be none other than the chasing car of the Only Racing Gold Team, and Dobry Renox, and Nazari Nish is just simply left there to think to himself, I've just been passed by 4 cars in the space of 3 corners. But what a 3 wide into 4 wide situation that was, and unfortunately Nish there just simply had to hold his ground and think to himself, okay, don't make a mistake, because otherwise this is going to end up in tears. But thankfully for all the drivers, it didn't end up in tears. It ended up with a brilliant moment. Indeed, I think that's going to be one of the highlights of the race today. Not saying it's going to be the only one, to be fair, as Harry Fletcher and Max Brown right now carrying on for where they left off in the Rookie Sports Car Cup, staying literally nose to tail. 1.6 seconds behind is Yuri Shura, just watching on. Oh, hold up a second, and Andrew Pike's got it wrong. He's into the gravel there at Stirling's Bend. Well, definitely the lack of practice perhaps now making itself known to the 57 driver, although to be fair, we don't know if he was biffed off the road to cause that, but we do know as he gets the car back together, and something's gone very, very wrong there for the TSRC hard and long manshaft driver, and right now he's definitely going to have to get things all back down the road and calm it down. As meanwhile we come back to the battle for 10th place, and that's going to be Ben Holmes back up the inside of Nish. Nish right now still not giving up, goes the switchback here. Great racing between these two as we ride on board Nish's number 59 on the inside in towards Druids, and well, you can see Ben Holmes trying to come around the left, but he gets obscured by the time tower, and well, a bit of contact between them, and they come together into the barrier of both go. Oh, goodness me. And I think there, Holmes on the outside. He was always bound to be batting into a space that was going to close. Nish getting the power down. That's not to say that Holmes at fault, to be fair. But both drivers right now, both are meatball flags. And they will both, if they're not towing to the pits, they will be coming into the pits at some point for repair work within the next 3 laps. Otherwise, it will be upgraded from what is a mandatory repair to a disqualification from the race as per the iRacing stewarding system. But the good news is they do have one fast repair, and it is a short pit lane here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Shortened by the fact we don't run the pit lane chicane, if my memory serves me correctly. Drivers drive straight into the pit lane, unlike the Indy circuit where you do have to run the pit lane chicane, or at least as events are run by MSV in the modern era. It may change from day to day, but right now as the drivers make the way on through, definitely a bit of a scary moment there for both Nish and Holmes, and I think they have both actually towed to the pits. But despite the fact we've had some drama for some drives so far, everyone's still out there. And, well, the simple reason is over 2 hours, anything can happen, and it normally does. As Kieran Sharp right now hooks himself onto the back of Tom Davidson. They're up into 8th and 9th, respectively. They're halfway through the field, but now they've got 1.6 seconds to Elliot Lewis, and he's attacking John Shorter. And we can confirm it is, in fact, John Shorter in the car at the moment, not what is none other than Richard Phillips. Richard Phillips will be jumping in the car later and taking over as they make the one through. At least that's the data that we've got here on our overlay. And if it is actually Richard Phillips in the car, Richard, we do apologise in advance there. It does seem as our overlay has not taken a kindness to you today. As meanwhile, there's Elliot Lewis on the inside. Smooth move from Lewis, makes the move count just like that. But I think these two are going to be battling back and forth with each other, and soon they're going to be bringing Doton and Sharp into the mix, and that's only going to add more fuel to the proverbial fire. As they come through. Now, with regards to the questionnaire for Gavin Gardner in the YouTube chat, is Bobby Moss racing today? Not as I understand it. I haven't got anything to say that Bobby Moss is expected to get on the grid, but never say never, to be fair. We'll have to wait and see whether he does get in the car, but as far as I'm aware, I'm not expecting Bobby to be out there. But I do believe he has been in the YouTube chat a few times, so Bobby is here, but he's more spectator than racer today, as Shorter versus Lewis, and John Shorter on the inside there. Lovely bit of manoeuvring. But look out the fight, and it's Sonny brought everyone else into the mix now. There's Davidson and Sharp, and well, right now John doing everything he can here to hold off, and I think the game plan will be get Elliot Lewis to be the one who has to deal with the 2 fast chargers on the back of the field, and you can just perhaps create a bit of a gap for yourself. But from the right in towards the left to Sterling as he goes, and they can see that Davidson thinks about the move, but decides not to lunge for it this time. I wonder what's changed there in terms of his attitude. Perhaps now that we're 10 minutes into the race, his thought process is, I can't afford to start pushing the tyres that aggressively anymore. And also remember, every car they overtake, they will be starting to come towards faster drivers. It's a natural fact, given the qualifying order, at least we'd expect that naturally the pace of the field is going to get closer and closer to what the TSRC drivers are able to achieve. But here goes Elliot Lewis then, defends in the middle of the road. Davidson looks around the outside. Meanwhile, Kieran Sharp, well, he's got the popcorn seat view as we ride on board the machine, as he makes his way on through. Number 23 driver for the TSRC Porsche fan club. We're looking to try and get involved as Davidson goes up the inside of Lewis there, place where he's gone for moves like that several times so far, and Kieran Sharp sees the space that's available. It's afforded to him as well by Lewis, but Lewis going defensive there in towards the left-hander. Graham Hill bed overcooks it a little bit under brake, he'd be on that tighter entry line, and Kieran Sharp now has an opportunity here to fight back, gets to the inside, goes onto the brakes, and just like that into Surtees, moves up another position. So Elliot Lewis puts up a stoic defence, and well, gets it absolutely done. And for some reason, I keep thinking that Gardner there is Gavin Gardner, a NXTCC driver, not Mav Gardner. I do apologise, Mav. My brain there is literally switched on at the moment with the return of the NXTCC in a few weeks' time, and I've got TCR on the brain, but for good reason, as I will reveal at the end of today's broadcast. That's a bit of a hint as to what may be coming at TSRC in the autumnal season, but I do apologise there, Mav, with regards to getting your name entirely wrong. Well, indeed, a broken clock can be right twice a day, or in the case of this commentator, a broken commentator can be wrong twice a day at least. But as Kieran Sharp makes his way onwards with Elliot Lewis towing, well, then we do have Davidson versus Shorter now rolling the way through the corners, and definitely enjoyed a good old battle. As we also say hello there to Olka9290, who's cheering on John Shorter and the team. But here comes Tom Davidson, putting a move there on Shorter into clearways, and just like that, moves up into 6th place. And there's going to be Kieran Sharp now looking for the move as well. Shorter to be on that outside line, lose a lot of momentum. And just like that, they do swap. But back to the front of the field we go, because we have a change for the lead. Now, it's not been a good paddock hill bend there for Harry Fletcher, because suddenly Max Moran takes over at the front of the field. And, well, we'll have to see if we can get a bit of context as to what happened there, because that's a sun change. But it has brought Yuri Shura now in amongst them. And suddenly, what was a pair of drives running away with this has now become potentially a three-way fight for position. And the last lap, where Harry Fletcher was 2 tenths slower, but you'd expect that, given that Max Moran was in the toe of him. So what's led to this? Well, we'll come back and find out shortly, as right now, here comes Fletcher all over the back of Moran, but he's trying to bump draft him along here, and essentially saying to him, look, let's work together, let's not annoy each other too much. In towards the right-hander Hawthorns they go. Remember, bump drafting always comes with its own prevailing risks, which is you only do it on the straights, you never do it going into a braking zone, and you never do it mid-corner, because you need to be completely flush. It's something you typically see in oval racing, particularly NASCAR in the United States of America. But you can do it in his Mazda MX-5s, as you will see in the IMSA Sports Car Cup, the Championship Support Series, the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup on an annual basis, particularly at Daytona, where bump drafting is just as important as being quick through the corners in the infield. But right now, Fletcher still keeping his head down here. It's a long race to go. Indeed, some of the big names now that started towards the back coming through, plus also the big names at the front of the field. And I suspect we're really settling in for a huge fight for the win later on in this race. And strategy will be such a pivotal part of this. And again, Fletcher reckoning, every time you pit, you will need to change the tyres. The tyres are not going to hold up more than approximately... Well, if we're expecting 2 pit stops today, you do the mathematics there. You're splitting the race into 3 parts. You're looking at a fuel tank that's doing about 40 to 50 minutes. Albeit if it's a shorter fuel stop for the final pit stop, then probably we're looking at a fuel tank that will go the best part of 45 to 50 minutes initially, and then it will be a shorter fuel tank right at the end. We're coming down the hill in towards Graham Hill Bend. Well, that gives us an opportunity, as things do cool and calm down a little bit, to take a look at some of the big moments in the start of the race, including, of course, the race start. So we do go back in time, and this was Harry Fletcher getting us underway as he did so. And as he did, look into the helicopter camera before the blimp camera. Oh, it was a bit misty there with the amount of cloud, but all the field got safely away. And as they made their way into the opening corner, well, we did see some decisive moves being made, including some battling further back. And that was Paul Sims there trying to make a bit of an early move, albeit actually having a move made on him by Yuri Shura, who was very keen to get going. But after everyone safely made the way through the opening few corners there, nobody having any issues getting through Paddock Hill Bend into Druids the first time of asking. Well, there were a few issues towards the end of the open lap, including this of Ben Holmes. And this was Ben Holmes only racing, batting with Nazari Nish. And, oh, the two of them did have a bit of coming together, so it wasn't the first time they made contact when they did, unfortunately, have their hit-toeing contact. And, well, they had a bit of coming together. They were making their way towards Pilgrim's Drop. So Holmes, in the end, just about getting away from that. That could have been a bit of a scary moment between them. Meanwhile, we also did have a little bit later, as we leave that footage behind, this for Harry Fletcher on the open lap. And this was Fletcher deciding to push a bit too hard, perhaps, into Sterling's. And he glided his way through that left-hander and went very wide, carried all the speed, and, well, got away with it that time, but definitely an instant point. And on lap number 2, we picked up this for Jay Walsh. This was the man who, of course, starting towards the front of the field and, well, got relegated down. And in the end, oh, it was the instant with Charlie Morgan. And, well, Morgan getting a bit wrong there. And sadly, his race going around and Jay Walsh having nowhere to react to. So this is what it looked like for Charlie Morgan as he made his way through that corner. Rear of the car completely letting go, and at that point, unfortunately, Jay Walsh comes plummeting down the hill. At that point, he's committed to the corner, and Charlie Morgan is really just a passenger in his car waiting for the inevitable. This is what it looked like on board from Jay Walsh's perspective. Made his way through the corner. At this point, you cannot back out. Sees the car in front's gone wrong and thinking that surely Charlie's going to go somewhere else. Sadly not. He's parked exactly on the exit curb. And well done to everyone else for being able to take evasive action. But the further back you are, and you wouldn't have had the call to say there were yellow flags at that point. And sadly, a bit of a blunt end to his opening stint. Then we had this for Mickey Ford on lap number 3 through Paddock Hill Bend. The rear of the car let go very early. And, well, the 266 driver in the end going around, went to the grass, and I think towed there afterwards. Perhaps some further damage to the car that we were not aware of. Lap number 4 had difficulties for John Metcalf. And this was the Blazing Flame machine, the one who was right towards the very front at the start. Surtees Bend. And, well, as he came through, the rear of the car let go there. I think he's downshifted a bit too late. And what it's done is it spun up the rear tyres with all the weight coming around already over into the front axle. And John Metcalf going around with, well, the slow motion spins, as they nickname them, because how slowly they occur. But they are definitely spins which you've got to make sure you don't have. Then we saw Luke Webb Racing's Luke Webb making his way through the left-hand of Graham Hill Bend. Went a bit too wide there. Rear right tyre, I think, catching some damp patches of grass. And the car going spinning on around. And then we did have this, of course, on lap number 5. This was was Ben Holmes and Nazarene Nish coming together. Bit of a controversial one, this one. Holmes is on the outside, Nish on the inside. Looking at it from that angle, it does perhaps look as though Nish, and I'm not blaming him to be fair, it's what the stewards will do afterwards in terms of figuring this out. I wonder if Nish has just understood a bit off of the corner and has got the power down, but he's just come on a bit of a convergence path with Ben Holmes. Holmes, to be fair, had a right to be there, and I think he was as far as he could be to make the exit of the corner on the outside line, but a bit of a difficult one to call there. I wouldn't want to be in the stewards room for that one. It will be a busy discussion around it. But with that, we head back to your live racing. And as we do, well, how about this? We do have Max Ron still leading, as we've got the car there of Jay Walsh now having a lap put on it. And Walsh having his incident from earlier on that we just got a replay of. But Yuri Shurin is now in the pack, and 7 seconds behind is Paul Sims, Fernando Horace Racing. And well, he finds himself now being crowded by Dave Wood, Tom Dawson and Kieran Sharp. They have put some time between themselves and Andrew Pike. We didn't quite see what happened to Andrew Pike earlier on. I think we are going to get a replay of that in short order to find out what exactly happened to the man who put it in the gravel at Sterling's. And in fact, we are going to get a quick replay now. It has just come available. So this was Pike at the time, chasing after Kieran Sharp, went into Sterling's. Rear right tyre there, I think, touching the grass slightly on turning, and that's what caused the whole rear of the car to let go. So Andrew Pike definitely bringing the drama in the theatre to today, as well as plenty of pace. But we come on back, and as we do, well, we come back to that pack we left only moments ago. They're all still very much together, and Kieran Sharp right now absolutely glued to the rear of Tom Davidson as they head up towards turn number 1. But as he does so, right now, peels out to the outside. Can he make a potential move? The answer seems to be not quite at the moment, but still eager to try and make one when he can. We do show you the team names there as well, because this is a teams event. We do have some teams that do have 2 drivers in the car. As at the inside there is going to be none other than Tom Davidson. Dave Wood being given the bit of the proverbial elbow there, and Wood pulls in behind now, drops back to 7th place. But I think for Wood, it's all about just being a bit smart here and making sure not to trouble perhaps those a bit fast at this point in time, and I think Dave would like to hang on to if he can, and use them as a means of getting closer to the very front of the field. So I think that's the fault for a lot of the drivers here. Those who are not perhaps as quick as the likes of Sharp and Davidson, just simply follow them around, and also follow Paul Sims around, and he'll gain even more time. But as we come towards the end of the opening 20 minutes of this race right now, indeed, time is absolutely flying us by here at Brands Hatch. Well, they say when you're having fun, time flies. We definitely are having fun today. Here in the commentary, we're covering this. I think a lot of our drivers are having fun out there. And, well, we still do have relatively sunny skies at the moment. But as was mentioned earlier on, there is a significant risk of rain returning in the second half of the race. And should it do so, well, the timing of that rain could really make the difference. But there's no guarantee. The forecast may suddenly change. The rain may not come our way. It may indeed come our way. But all of our drivers right now definitely putting on a good showing. As we look back to Luke Webb, and well, we do have Michelle Matchett there cheering on Luke Webb as he makes way down there. The team Luke Webb driver, well, running in 13th place at the moment, but still trying to chase after David Drury if he can. And his lap times right now almost matching Drury, so he could be in the battle for 12th place later on today. The last 3 lead lap runners. But we come back to Davidson, Sharp and Sims, and both Davidson and Sharp making the way past Paul Sims, the driver who did race in the Mazda MX-5 Championship here at the Sim Racing Collective, racing in the silver class, if I remember correctly, or what would have been our effective AM class to our pro class, which was the gold class. And Paul Sims did have a brilliant start to that season, but I think as the season went on, the pace of his performances started to drop a little bit, and also had a lot of bad luck, if my memory serves me correctly. And well, Paul's been one of those drivers, he's always great to watch, to be fair to him. He does have a lot of skill behind the wheel, but it does seem as though he needs a lot of conditions to align for him to get really the most out of his performances in the car. And that's not being unfair to him. There are some drivers who are like that, where when everything is right, they are unstoppable on the day, and we saw that in some of the silver class races, him taking, I do believe, at least 1 win and multiple podiums. But when the conditions are not perfect, that's when the driver can really struggle, and we saw that for Sims. Also had a lot of bad luck that season with several incidents along the way. But today so far, without instant touchwood, we wouldn't want to wish an incident on anybody, although now that I've said that, I'm sure the commentator's curse is going to say hello at some point later on in this race. But hopefully it doesn't befall anybody, because as Max Ron makes one around, still your leader, and Yuri Shurin and Harry Fletcher swap places. But one of the things we did want to understand was how Moron made his way past Fletcher back on lap number 10. Or was it lap number 8? In fact, it was lap number 8, and here's a quick replay to fill us in the gaps. So this was coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, and it was Fletcher who got a bit wide there. So he touched the gravel with the left-hand side tyres, and as he rejoined, had lost a lot of momentum, and Ron decided, right, pull the trigger on that straight away. So no real major mistake there, just a brief run wide from Fletcher, and just like that, well, understandable how it all went between them as we come back to your live pictures. Now, we are hearing in our ear that there's been a bit of an incident for Mickey Ford for FDU Racing. Something's got a bit wrong. He's had to tow to the pit lane for the second time today. Now, sadly for him, as he has already used a fast repair, we suspect, it now means he's going to have a full-length pit stop to get the car repaired, plus the tow time. He's not on camera. We'll try and get a replay of what happened to him shortly. As right now we come back to your 4th and 5th runners of Davidson and Sharp. The Climax Racing drive still pulling away from what is the Nando Horace machine, but bringing it with him the Bulge Fan Club car of Kieran Sharp. There is your Nando Horace racing machine of Paul Sims. And, well, I get the feeling now, as I said to you earlier on, the fact that I usually confuse Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso together and normally refer to them both as Fernando Norris, well, I get the feeling with the Nando Horace racing car, I'm going to be starting to refer to Lando Norris as Nando Horace going forward. And if so, thank you, Paul Sims, in advance for traumatising and reconfiguring my poor brain. But as he heads on around it, he's still doing a good job, no doubt about it. And, well, we do look a bit further back to Elliot Lewis of Team Elliot Lewis as he runs in 9th and continues to try and chase after John Shorter. But into the pits comes Luke Webb from 13th place. He's in after a grand total of 23 minutes of racing. Still a little bit of standing water there in the pit lane, albeit not that much, but a couple of small, very minuscule puddles. And, well, is Luke Webb potentially coming in for an early stop? Is he perhaps going for a bit of an offset strategy here? He is putting fuel in the car, it should be pointed out, and the car's going up onto the jacks. So they are going to do some work on that car. So perhaps Luke Webb's decided, well, given how far back I'm at the moment, I might as well gamble doing something differently. And perhaps his gamble is thought process is take the short stint to begin with and then just have a heavily loaded car for the remainder of the race. And particularly if rain is on its way at any point, getting that stop out early actually might be a good idea. It might give him a bit more strategic flexibility later on. Let's just wait and see how that goes in reality for him. But as Davidson and Sharp continue to push each other around, they're almost 5 seconds now from Yuri Schurer, who we see here. And in fact, Schurer has slipped back behind Harry Fletcher quite recently, so he did make some progress. On lap 13, he's lost that progress, as meanwhile Max Ron goes a bit deep at Surtees Bend, and Fletcher gets back ahead. But as these drivers continue to make way deeper and deeper into the first stint, now the real focus will start to fall on what will be a strategy, long-term pace rather than short-term gain. So what can you do as a driver to make your pit stop strategy work for you? Well, naturally, everyone has the same starting fuel tank available to them. This is a fixed setup, so they are not allowed to touch the fuel tank they start on. Everyone takes a 50% fuel tank compared to the normal allowance. Now, let's hypothetically say that fuel tank will take a driver 45 minutes into the race by default if you're all driving evenly. What you can do to extend that fuel tank is you can do multiple fuel saving techniques. The main one is lift and coast, whereby every time you get towards a braking zone, whereas you may brake 100 metres from, say, clearways, as Harry Fletcher makes his way towards it, instead of what you will now do is you will lift off the throttle about 150 metres in the corner, so 50 metres earlier, and then you'll brake a bit lighter. That will help you save fuel because you're not accelerating as much. What it will also do is it actually helps you save the tyres a little bit because you're braking from a less aggressive speed, and you're also able to smooth out your brake trace a little bit more, but it's typically the fuel you save there. One of the other things you can do, and what Davidson and Kieran Sharp have been doing for some time, is essentially run those to tail with another driver and try to fuel save off of the back of them. So Kieran Sharp in particular, because he's in the slipstream constantly, and these MX-5s do pick up a big tow off of each other, it does mean on those short straights, he might be able to save just a small amount of fuel, and instead of essentially having to worry about being too close to Davidson's car, he will lift off the throttle midway down the straight in order to just give himself the space. He saves fuel, he's not accelerating, he's not getting the engine to work as hard, and it enables you to just get some fuel back. And how big a difference could the fuel saving make at a circuit such as the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit? Well, over a 45-minute stint, with the average lap time at the moment being 1 minute 40, let's hypothetically say, you could, in theory, put an extra lap or two into a given stint. So suddenly you could make a 45-minute stint actually become a 48 to 50-minute stint. And that is the power of fuel saving. Tyre management is the other key part of the story. As we do look to Andrew Pike, who just found his way past Elliot Lewis. We'll get a replay of that shortly. And to protect the tyres, well, one thing you can do is on corner exits, use higher gears or short shift your way up the gears, which is where you don't max out every gear. So if the car goes up to a red line of, say, 7,500 RPM, don't quote me on that, for the Sky Active G what is a 2-litre 4-cylinder, 181 brake horsepower Mazda engine. That'll be in the front of all these cars. What you do find is you short shift quite early, you're actually not spinning the tyres as aggressively on corner exit, and that helps calm the car down, and also it saves some rear tyre wear. Front tyre wear, meanwhile, you've got to be a bit smooth on your application of the steering wheel into and out of the corners. That's how you prevent front tyre wear from becoming too notable. But meanwhile, as Yuri Shura elbows his way out the inside there, Max Ron in towards turn number 1. And coming out, well, Harry Fletcher will be grateful here with these two fighting. Ashura comes through. Moron does back out of that battle there and decides he does want to play a part of it as he now simply goes the outside there, Graham Hill Bend. Keeping Shura under pressure. In fact, does try to go back around the outside. So we weren't right to call that. Oh, they come together. And Yuri Shura's turned. Does he avoid the tyre barrier? It is a brief knock to the barrier. And Shura in the end, well, front left axle is definitely going to take a small amount of damage. But is it going to be enough to force him into the pit lane early? And, well, this is a bit early. Won't be coming in this zone, and well, a bit of a misunderstanding there between the two of them. I think neither drive way to really give up, but the reality is it's now gifted Harry Fletcher a 1.8 second lead. If he can continue to maintain and extend that lead, suddenly Harry Fletcher might be able to gradually break off into the distance here and start to really claim this race as his own. But you can see there, Moron does have Davidson and Sharp closing up to him. And Paul Sims, meanwhile, with Dave Wood and Yuri Shura behind. So, Yuri Shura's a bit further back, in fact, because that is the lap down car of Jay Walsh you see in the back of this trio. And then you have Shura make his way down towards Westfield Bend. But the only race in the sweat driver, still got a lot of time out there, and we know he's got a lot of pace at his fingertips. He has got the pace to match the fastest drivers. He's just got to see now if he's got a car that's still able to carry on, or whether he is forced to pit early. But again, he might be able to turn this into a bit of a strategic advantage. We have had some pit stops. We had one from Elliot Lewis. Oh, that's not quite gone right for Elliot Lewis, as the British driver's gone for a spin there, coming out of Graham Hill Bend. And he has been the first driver to, we believe, alongside Luke Webb, make a strategic pit stop, albeit on lap 16 to Webb's lap 13. But Lewis right now has got to get himself back in the game here, and will try to recover and salvage a bit more time out of this race. But everything's happened in a very short period of time, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look back at what exactly happened between Max Ron and Yuri Shura and try to understand where it all did go a bit too wrong. So this was they battled their way into Paddock Hill Bend on the start of lap 17, and Yuri Shura looked up the inside as he did so. Smooth move, a little bit of an elbow out there from Moron, but nothing too malicious to be fair. That's standard contact between a Mazda MX-5 Cup car. And more in towards Druids they went. Now we're on the outside at this point. We thought he'd backed off, but in fact he went for the switchback here to put himself on the outside into Graham Hill Bend. Brilliant battling driving between them as they come through that left-hander and then made the way towards the straight. That's where the contact was. And can we get on board there from Moron's car? I think we can, and this is what it looked like on board. So, come out the corner. He would argue that he's been slightly forced wide here. Shura's tried to come across, and I think as Moron's then tried to bring himself onto the road, and he will eventually go to the grass, that has been where the point of contact has occurred. It's a bit of a difficult one now. I wonder if in reflection, hindsight is a wonderful thing, of course, 2020 hindsight. I wonder if Max will look back at it and think, actually, should I have perhaps backed out there? Because really what we've done is we've gifted a lot of time and space to Harry Fletcher. Meanwhile, in parallel, we did have this for Mickey Ford. And the FD Racing driver made his way up into the Druids hairpin, carry out the corner, gone a bit deep initially, and the rear of the car let go and sent him around. Well, went for a full 360-degree pirouette, but then towed to the pit lane. Something definitely not right with the car. And then Elliot Lewis only moments ago having this moment as he made his way down to Graham Hill Bend, keeping, of course, the fact in mind that he'd only just changed the tyres over after a pit stop, and on cold tyres and a full tank of fuel, the car going completely on around him there. Very easy to do when you've got all the weight towards the rear of the fuel and a lot of weight on the front with regards to the engine and fresh tyres that haven't warmed up. But we come back, and as we do, well, we come right back into the thick of the fighting as Max Ron right now trying to make sure Tom Davidson and Kieran Sharp don't find their way through. And well, Tom Davidson definitely finding his bites of more than he can chew here as Kieran Sharp looks up the inside of one. He's going to go for a 2-for-1 special right now as the Sim Racing Collective driver. Does he get it done? He does there. Smooth move from Kieran Sharp. And now 2.8 second gap to Harry Fletcher. Can he bring it down? Well, the thought process is, in theory, he should be able to, given the pace he has shown here today, but also the fact, if he can work the two drivers behind to bump draft off each other, they will be able to gain about 2 or 3 tenths a lap on the straight. However, will Max Ron and Tom Davidson want to work together? We think it's more Max Ron here. This is not finger pointing, we should say. I think he does want to fight with these guys a bit more, given the pace they're bringing to the table. But even he will have his limits, I suspect, of knowing when to perhaps back out of the fight and instead tuck in. and simply play the team game. That temporary alliance between drivers, which essentially says, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, only to then later on, of course, decide that it's going to be full-out warfare on the road once again. Tom Davidson looking around the outside then in towards clearways. Moron being a bit firm there to say to him, no, if you're going to do it, you'll do it somewhere else, thank you very much. As Harry Fletcher's just taken to the gravel there out of the final corner as I looked out my commentary booth window. So the British driver there in the number 66, well, definitely feeling a bit distant pressure. Tom Davidson looking around the outside of Moron as he goes in towards another lap. On to lap number 20 of the race now. We'll get plenty more before we're all said and done. We are on course to do about 70 laps if my mental mathematics is correct. Right now, Davidson on the inside there, and can the Climax Racing driver get the job done? Not quite. Moron does have a little bit of moment there coming off the exit curb, but he's still there. And credit where it's due to the Sim Motorsport Endurance driver, the SME driver, will really dig it in here, not giving up a bit. And well, fantastic fighting between them. Onto the brakes they go then in towards that left-hander for Surtees. And what's it going to be as they come out of the corner? The answer is that Davidson had to be a bit fair there, trying to get his elbows out. I think these two just refusing to give up at all. But that's where the excitement comes in a race such as this, as they continue to fight every corner. But it's giving Kieran Sharp 1.5 seconds to play with. As they keep us entertained, we've also got some entertainment further down. The orders Ben Holmes and Nazri Nish. They are fighting each other as well, heading in towards Surtees Bend. They are a lap down, but credit where it's due to them. They're not giving up on the fight, and they have had already 2 moments together where they've had, let's say, an on-track conversation. Or an on-track debate is probably the best way to put it. Then it happened, of course, in the run down here on the opening lap, and also did come to blows through Graham Hill Bend. A few laps later, and now they find themselves 2 wide, this time into Hawthorns, and Ben Holmes making sure to be very clear to Nish that he doesn't want to let him through, and well, defending as best as possible. But into pit lane there, a bit early perhaps to get on the limiter, but some drivers not as confident as others. I think also there, David Drury perhaps not used to the fact that the pit lane chicane not in effect, this is not the Indy layout. Well, the British driver makes one down for DHD Racing, and in 12th place he has come in. Well, where will he return? Well, I think Jay Walsh will take the place off of him. But remember, Jay Walsh has already made 1 pit stop, but that was a forced pit stop on him due to damage at the start of the race. So therefore, he's out of strategic sequence. He is still, on strategy at least, behind David Drury. And, well, the big question mark will really be, where will Luke Webb be in relation to David Drury? We'll have to wait and see. As we look to Andrew Pike, he has recently found his way past John Shorter and the RPS SimSport 707. Break the way towards Drury's Bend, and can we get a quick look back at that? I think we can. So this was their battle as they made the way out of the final corner. Andrew Pike having a lot more speed coming out of clearways. In fact, so much they actually put the brakes on there on the corner exit to make sure he did not rear-end John Shorter's 707. And in the end, Andrew Pike was able to side draft his way through, and Shorter not having a response to that one to let it go. As the battle between Nish and Holmes, well, this was the 2 of them fighting a bit later on. They were fighting over 14th place, and Holmes then went a bit wide out of Westfield Bend. Nish being brave there through Dingledale into Sheen. Up the inside he went, and doing a move that Barry Sheen would be proud of there. And Nazari and Nish up into 14th place again at that moment, but the 2 of them have swapped the places back quite recently. So they continue to fight, and we show them on screen here. And these 2 drivers right now absolutely locking horns. As Nish looking back to the inside, I think this is going to be a fight now between these 2 all the way to the end and just scrapping non-stop. But to be fair, we don't mind that. As they're all coming around, all these drivers right now enjoying themselves. But what is going to be the big fault with regards to strategy? Because we are coming towards the end now of what is 40 minutes of races. We are heading towards the potential opening pit window. We have seen a couple of pit stops on laps 13 through to 19. Derek Drury being the most recent candidate to make his way to the pit lane. But understandably, a lot of your drivers have yet to pit, including what is your top 10 out there of Fletcher, Sharp, Davidson, Moron, Sims, also there Wood, Shearer, Pike, Shorter and Metcalf, and Elliot Lewis, the first who has pitted and pitted strategically, pitted on lap 16. The only thing is he did make that error, which understandably has cost him quite a bit of time. That spin on fresh tyres, but still keeping his head down and pushing on as best he possibly can. But coming from Elliot Lewis, back to Harry Fletcher. Well, he was worried about Kieran Sharp catching up to him later on in the race, and now that worry has definitely materialised. Now, what do you do at this point if you're Harry Fletcher? Do you work with Kieran Sharp, or do you try to frustrate him a little bit before the pit stop and try to bring the second pair, Davidson and Ron, into the pack, and in doing so, potentially create a 4-way fight for the win that you then try to outsmart in strategy? Well, it'll be up to them to see how they do it. But there's definitely two schools of thought here which need to be thought out by Fletcher, because he'll be worried that Kieran Sharp may run away from it later in the race. He does beat him on the pit stops there, particularly given he'll be stuck behind Fletcher. He can fuel save as much as possible. As Max Ron, I think, has now decided it's worth working with Tom Davidson rather than fighting him. And that may just simply help bring Ron back into that fight later on in the race. Going to Dave Wood, still on the back of Paul Sims. So these two together right now as they make the way towards the timeline. Some great racing between them so far. And the number 13 driver, having started in third place, well, definitely got muscled down the order early on, but now finding his equal in Sims, who started in fourth by comparison. Paul Sims there being a lot more aggressive on turning into Paddock Hill Bend, taking a much more sweeping entry line. Wood being much more conservative by comparison. I think that's also to offset the dirty air of the car in front of him. Down the hill, and as they do towards Graham Hill Bend, you can see that gap right now staying comfortably about 4 to 5 tenths. And I think here both drivers now thinking more about the strategy that is to come. As Ben Holmes is into the pit lane. Oh, that's not the way you enter the pits there. Points in the wrong direction and toes the pit lane there. Well, I thought I'd seen everything in regards to entering the pit lane at Brands Hatch in my ears. And then I've seen that from Ben Holmes. So I clearly haven't seen everything. As meanwhile, we get to see here Kieran Sharp looking around the outside of Harry Fletcher. This is for the lead of the race right now. They go too wide through Hawthorns. They'll be too wide into Westfield Bend here, and Fletcher on the inside. It's a good place to be. Defender position on the inside into Westfield. Sharp's going to try and carry all the speed, but you'll never find that amount of road width to work with. And this is where the circuit really tightens up. But Sharp's not giving in here, and well, to be fair, absolutely bold, absolutely brazen, being a bit too brave perhaps. Does put two wheels onto the grass there, but still in track limits, kept two wheels in the white lines. And well, Harry Fletcher says, you can do that, I can do it too. So the fight in between these two right now, and suddenly Harry Fletcher definitely getting his fangs out there and saying, no, this is mine. But already that has cost the pair of them 2 seconds for that fight. A brilliant battle between them. And now Tom Davidson only 1.1 seconds away from your top two, and bringing Max Ron slowly into the pack as well. As here comes Kieran Sharp on the inside, going for the move there. And right now the Porsche Fan Club car going all in versus the Harry Fletcher racing machine. He does get that move done, but Fletcher's going to look to the inside, and Sharp just simply says, nope, I've got druids covered. What are you going to do? I think Fletcher's got no response at the moment other than stuck in and simply wait. But goodness me, Kieran Sharp absolutely eagle-eyed there, looking for the move left, looking for the move right, and in the end taking a bit more of a conventional move into Paddock Hill Bend to get it done. But credit where it's due to the two of them for fighting side by side for the entirety of what was the back end of the Grand Prix loop. Not an easy place to go there, and it goes to show you two professionals hard at their graft and craft, but really putting on a stellar display. But Sharp roars his way down to Pilgrim's Drop. Tom Davidson's the next one to try and tick Harry Fletcher off the list if he can. Although I don't think they're going to be dropping Fletcher that quickly, if I had to guess. But Max Ron, meanwhile, 3 seconds behind here. And that is just as much the pain of not having the slipstream of the car in front as it is perhaps a bit of a delta on pace by comparison. And we're understanding right now he's not out of this yet, but he'll be hoping that top three potentially fight each other more. Otherwise, this will become an increasingly lonely drive in fourth place. Unless, of course, he sees Paul Sims or Dave Wood close up to him. But we'll have to see if time will tell that story. But one story we need to understand is how Ben Holmes ended up being parked the wrong way in the pit lane and doing his best Austin Powers impression, if any of you do remember that movie, with regards to the machine being caught in what was a very tight corridor. But here's Holmes making his way on through, and the Owners Racing Gold Team drive went very wide there coming out of Sterling's, just about collected the car back together, but then a lap later, in fact, this was the same replay, though we do apologise. So this was after the fact, and this was him coming to the end of lap 21, made his way through clearways, and something tells me he's gone very wide at the corner, so he's ended up spearing his way into the pit lane there, trying to gather the car. He avoided the tyre barrier, but ended up spinning across the pit limiter line, and sadly, because he's cut across so much of the grass and the pit entry lines, that will be classified as an unsafe pit entry, so he's going to get a double whammy here of towing to the pit and then being held there until he served what is a stop and hold penalty for unsafe pit entry. Unfortunately, we have no control over that. That's the iRacing automated stewarding system. Nazri Nish, meanwhile, I believe, has sadly had to tow to the pit lane due to a technical issue. There it is. The car finally appears on our replay cameras. And, well, the Ukrainian driver for Dobry Ranok is not having a happy day at the office after enjoying quite the scrap with Ben Holmes. But it seems as though if Holmes is going to have drama, meanwhile, Nish has some similar drama only moments later, or at least equivalent drama. Now, Ben Holmes has retired from the race due to unsafe pit entry, and we have also lost Mickey Ford from the race. So we're now down to 16 of our 18 starters that are still running, but there's still plenty of excitement to come in this race later on. Let's do look back to the last two lead lap runners at the moment. Here's Elliot Lewis, and well, you will very soon be seeing Kieran Sharp and company in the rear of the picture. They are only around about 10 seconds behind Lewis at the moment, but Lewis, remembering, of course, has already made his first pit stops. The reality is he's approximately about 35 seconds up the road from them. But given the way the strategies are playing out at the moment, it is a bit closer, because here is Kieran Sharp making his way up towards the timing line, trying to drop Harry Fletcher. And will Fletcher find himself now under pressure from Tom Davidson, who's looking for a move around the outside? Can Davidson get this move done? The answer is going to be no, not quite. He'll go for the switchback instead, and being a bit creative here. Here they go up the hill. Onto the brakes, but Fletcher on the outside trying to squeeze Davidson, but in the end he can't quite get the door shut. So Davidson does find his nose on the inside as Paul Sims and John Shorter are both into the pit lane. And well, there's Harry Fletcher on the inside again here. Davidson trying to scoot around the outside, but goes a bit too wide there. Falls off the corner with some understeer. I'm not sure if there's contact there on exit. If it was, I think it was more Netco contact. But Tom Davidson being held in third at the moment. And Kieran Sharp, who was being kept in line with Harry Fletcher and Tom Davidson, might see this as an opportunity to break away. But the Nando Horace machine of Paul Sims is in. So it's John Shorter's RPM SimSport machine. And I suspect he'll be giving the car over there to teammate of Richard Phillips, if my guess is correct. So Richard Phillips may be jumping that car in short order. A driver change there, but both cars right now being fully serviced and getting ready to go back out in due course. Andrew Pike running in sixth. He's still got Yuri Shura behind him. And well, he's in sixth for the moment, trying to run away if he can. But this has definitely not worked out the way he's expected it to. And Yuri Shura right now really staying glued with him. But remember, Yuri Shura got caught up in that instant with none other than Max Ron early on in the race when they were fighting over second. And meanwhile, Andrew Pike being caught up in his own spin into the gravel trap of Sterling's Bend back on lap number 4. So both drivers here on similar pace, but both right now trying to get the way back into the lead of the race. As here's Harry Fletcher. He comes into the pits, and as he does so, takes the chicane there, but I don't think he's realised we're not running the chicane. You can go straight on, so that's going to cost him some extra time. But the number 66 driver there being caught by surprise by that as he makes his way on down pit road. Well, into the pits he goes from the fast lane, across the slow lane, and straight into the service lane. As meanwhile, Max Ron does the same right behind, and Dave Wood has come in and picked up a black flag. I believe that's an unsafe pit entry, and that's going to be a stop and a hold there for the Owners Racing Drone Boy driver. And well, the team will be definitely droning on to him with regards to the fact that he will now need to essentially give time back to the circuit, and that is going to be a stop and hold, I suspect, to the best part of 40 seconds. That's going to cost him a lot of time he cannot afford. But as all the drivers carry on, well, some pit stops definitely being made, but your top three not coming in. Kieran Sharp, Tom Davidson, Andrew Pike. Yuri Shura is in. So it does look as though lap number 26 is the furthest that many could go. But it does seem our TSRC drivers are proving you can go even longer. So the fuel tank in the end lasting around about 42 to 43 minutes. And our drivers who have been fuel saving are trying to get it to go 45 minutes if they can. And that gives us some information now that we can take forward into the second and the final stints of the race. But Dave Wood still being held there, and sadly not allowed to go, and that is because of the fact that he does have what is the penalty for the unsafe pit entry for speeding into the pits. And we'll see John Metcalf parked up behind there, and Metcalf at this time may actually get a bit closer to Dave Wood as a result. His pit stop is almost complete, I believe. He's got no penalty to go with. Well, that's 45 seconds at the moment, pushing upwards of 50 seconds here. So John Metcalf taking his time in the pits and just about leaving now. Meanwhile, Dave Wood still got about, I think, 10 seconds left on that stop and hold penalty. So Wood's going to drop all the way down to 11th place at the moment, and also for a lap down here. As here's Kieran Sharp going on, and Sharp goes another lap. He's going to go 28 laps here on the opening tank of fuel. Andrew Pike meanwhile comes in, so does Tom Davidson. So Kieran Sharp right now, well, I don't know what he's been able to do there. That's definitely going to be a fuel tank that's going longer than everybody else is, but everyone's running the same fuel tank to start with. That we can confirm, but the Team TSRC driver right now has strategically pulled off a bit of a masterclass here. He's been able to do at least an extra lap, if not 2 or 3 extra laps compared to the rest of the field, and that's going to give him so much more flexibility later on in this race. As he makes way on down the second straight, coming in towards Pilgrim Shop shortly. Well, Tom Davidson will be coming out the pits, and as he does so, where does he come out in relation to Max Ron and Harry Fletcher? Now, Harry Fletcher's dropped behind Ron, and I believe Fletcher's also had a much longer pit stop time. So, with that, was there a penalty for Fletcher coming into the pits? I'm not 100% certain. What I can tell you is that he did have the tyres changed, much like Max Ron, but he's had a 1 minute and 5 second pit stop time end to end versus Max Ron, who's had only a 40.43 second pit stop time. Tom Davidson, meanwhile, 38.83. So Harry Fletcher, big shock there. He's had a much longer stop than originally anticipated. Dave Wood, by the way, has left the pit lane, and in the end, the stop and hold for him, well, it took him to a 1 minute 50 long pit stop stationary time. So not the way that he wanted it to go whatsoever for Dave Wood. As we're looking at Harry Fletcher, who finds himself in the company of John Shorter. And, well, up the road from him is Yuri Shura. So Fletcher's got a lot more work to do now. And as he tries to weave and wind the way on through. We do take a big sip of water there. We've got plenty of water in the commentary booth today. And right now, we can definitely see it after where it's all the pit stops bar for one driver. Well, Kieran Sharp is going to be effective race leader once he finally does take that pit stop. Unless there is going to be some sort of mistake with regards to pit entry. Alternatively, a mistake on the road for Sharp right now. But he's definitely come all the way through from the back of the field, all the way into the effective lead. And Tom Davidson, right now, very comfortably your second place runner, with Max Moron in third, the Sim Motorsport Endurance driver. He'd like to catch up to him, but if anything, he has been gradually caught by those behind him. Paul Sims, Andrew White, Yuri Shearer and Harry Fletcher. So he could be on a bit of a collision course to end up battling with them again. We do look to Jay Walsh, the MVG Motorsport driver, recently having a bit of a moment on lap number 26. And what exactly happened to him? Here's a quick replay to explain. So this was Walsh coming out of Druids and down into Graham Hill Bend, but went very wide on entry into Graham Hill as he went from the grass to the tarmac, with the rear of the car simply not gripping up as quickly as the front end of the car. And more the British driver, they're going around, but quickly getting it off the circuit before he ended up being caught up with some of the other drivers, including Nazari Nish. And we also did see there Charlie Morgan's car coming on through as we head back to your live circuit side pictures. As the drivers then carry on, well, we do look to Charlie Morgan, the driver who definitely had difficulty on the opening few laps. It all went wrong at Paddock Hill Bend, and the Briton for Only to Race in Stance Nation. Well, now he's having to make up some lost time. He has Dave Wood for Only to Race in Drone Boy, his teammate, if you will, only 2 seconds behind. But for him, it's definitely a bit of a campaign. He's got to find some time. As all, Harry Fletcher, he's not too happy. Pulls off the road there, throws the car to the barrier at Druids, and that's going to be a tow to the pit lane. But what's happened there to Harry Fletcher? Well, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was Fletcher at the time making his way in towards Paddock Hill, being chased there by the machine of RPMS Simsports John Shorten, carried too much speed into Paddock Hill, so went wide, just about dodged the tyre barrier, then rejoined, so made his way back onto the road, and in the Britain made his way up the hill here, and as he did so, car not looking too healthy as he made his way upwards, and well, in fact, oh, goodness me, and then hitting the barrier. I don't think he intended to hit the barrier, to be fair, and I know that sounds very obvious, but I wonder if there's a technical issue with the car. We do know, of course, that towards the end of the Rookie Sports Car Cup with the UK Motorsport Esports, he was having technical issues, and I think those technical issues have come back for Fletcher because his car is out of the race. I do believe he's had to retire from the race. Something has gone very wrong. I do wonder if we'll be able to get a feed as to what's exactly happened there. But as we are hearing, the Nazari Nish has rejoined the racing, but he did have, essentially the reason why we lost him and he's returned is because locally he's had a power cut, or the power is now back. And, well, good to see him returning there despite the power cut, but that does mean he is the penultimate of your runners. Luke Webb only being behind him by the best part of 30 seconds. Benish right now trying to make up for lost time as Jay Walsh into the pit lane for his first scheduled pit stop of the day. And as he does park up there right now, the number 68 driver for MVG Motorsport definitely taking a bit of a breather, getting himself set and ready to go once again as they all put the fuel and the tyres in the car and more the full fuel tank going in as much as possible. But as we do leave him, we come back to the front. And Kieran Sharp with that pit stop. A 40-second pit stop, dead on the dot. Tom Davidson right behind him, 6 tenths behind. And with Fletcher having a bit of drama, and that has forced him out of the race. Well, right now, your top two, a 10-second gap to Max Moron, looking as though they're in a bit of a scrap of their own. So Sharp and Davidson, well, they come towards the end of the open hour here. Still a bit of distance in this race. I think both drivers here thinking now that they've moved all the way to the front of the field. And at this point, they can try and control this one to the end. But what will be working together initially, I suspect is going to be a bit of a battle shortly. As in fact, it is a battle straight away. And well, here comes Davidson on the inside. Sharp on the outside meanwhile. And will we see a change between the two of them? The answer is yes, we will. Tom Davidson now takes the lead. 10 seconds behind. Here's Max Ron, a bit of a lonely third place. And in fact now starting to gap Paul Sims. So it does look as though here he's at the mercy of the leaders fight each other and bring him back into the fold. Unless he can suddenly find a lot more time. And then we look to Andrew Pike, running fifth at the moment. And the TSRC hard and long manshaft driver, still keeping Yuri Sheriff only racing the sweat at bay. Albeit sure has not been dropped at all. The gap being maintained at around 4 to 6 tenths. So I think this goes to show you that these two right now both putting on some very impressive pace. Their pace not quite as quick as the top two, but definitely quicker than the likes of Sims and Moron. So over time, they should theoretically get close enough to get a bit more involved. Now, we have had a bit of an incident for Jay Walsh after he left the pit lane. His car's back there, and it's got a meatball flag associated with it. What exactly has happened to Jay Walsh? Here's a replay. So this was Walsh just after pitting, rejoined the circuit, comes out of Druids Bend, goes a bit too wide, rear left tyre in particular trying to spin up on grass and just gets catapulted to the barrier. And for Jay Walsh, that's no surprise there why he's had to tow the car to the pit lane. That damage there, that will cause significant rear left suspension damage and his car out of the running for the time being, but he'll get it back out there when he can. As meanwhile, Charlie Morgan has rejoined after taking his first scheduled stop to the pit lane, now on lap number 29. So Morgan are changing the tyres, putting the fuel back in the car and then carrying on. But Jay Walsh, sadly, a lot of repair work to the car as well. And I do believe has already used up his fast repair. So for Jay Walsh, it's much longer time now and will leave him in a degree to spare. But as we come back to the front, this time Kieran Sharp dives up the inside of Tom Davidson. So they swap the place back once again. And Davidson looking on the inside here in the Climax Racing number 28. Real back and forth between these drivers and indeed quite the spectacle between them. As I do show you the team names there on the left-hand side of your screen. And, well, the fight between them right now does feel as though this is a little bit what is not rehearsed between them necessarily, but definitely a bit of a to-me-to-you style fight, whereby they're not fighting each other too hard. If they'll fight each other hard, you would imagine the gap to Max Moron would be coming down. In fact, it has gone up. That last lap by almost 2 seconds. It's now in the ballpark of 12 seconds there. So these two playing the game, which is provide each other some entertainment, but also work together. So that way they're making that battle for the win their own in what will be at the second hour of the race. So all the excitement at the moment really coming from what is a bit further down the order. Andrew Pike and Yuri Shura still trying to close down Paul Sims. They're almost there to him now, with Sims being the best part 1.3 seconds clear. There is Paul Sims, your fourth place runner for the Nando Horace Racing Machine. Well, comes on down for a building drop this time, but we're looking in his mirrors and noticing that he has got the grime presence of a TSRC car, but was once an ant and is no longer a spec. It is definitely a very real threat to him. I think that's only going to put a bit more pressure on our number 4 driver. Around he comes through the corners, and as he does so, well, we can tell you that at this time, we've still got 14 runners left in this race. It'll be MVG Motorsports' Jay Walsh. He is classified as in the pits, car being looked at, still being repaired as well, so hopefully we get to see him out there. We may still have 15 runners in actuality. We've definitely lost FD Racing's Mickey Ford. We've also lost Ben Holmes' Onid Racing Gold Team, and our most recent casualty has been the man who was one of the potential candidates to be on the podium, if not win today after taking pole position, and that's Team Harry Fletcher. Harry Fletcher, unfortunately, with that instant into Paddock Hill Bend and then subsequently into the barrier before Druids. And a bit of a story there that we don't know quite the full details of, but definitely it did go wrong. But right now, it's definitely going right for the battle here for full place, as Nando Horace Machine and Paul Sims has to try and keep the TSRC hard and long manshaft car of Andrew Pike behind by looking for a potential move. Doesn't quite make it work there, coming out of Druids Bend, so instead now thinking Graham Hill Bend. Do I go for the move? Doors open, but of course that's a bit of a deceptive opportunity there, given the way the corner pushes away from the apex. But you're going to have to try and turn on a very tight line. As we briefly lose Paul Sims to the ether, he does come back there. Hopefully not a sign of an issue internet connectivity wise, because if so, well, definitely that would be a bit gut wrenching for the British driver in the number 4. Quite poetic, he would be running in 4th place in the number 4 at the moment. And Andrew Pike here getting the draft now, looking to the outside up towards Hawthorns. Can he go for the move? I think the answer will be yes, but how much does he commit to it? The answer is very much so. But Paul Sims says in return, I'm just going to roll out of the way and make it easy for you, Andrew. And in the end, it will be Pike who's able to power his way past in towards Westfield and gets it done. As Yuri Shura, 2.7 seconds behind, has been dropped to a degree, but he did have an off track on the previous lap. In fact, on this lap, he's had the off track, and that's what's cost him the time. And here was a view of the small mistake made by Yuri Shura. practice was going down to Graham Hill Bend, where he took the right line into the corner, but a lot of apex curve there. That unsettled the rear end of the car, and in the end had to wrestle and wrangle the car back onto the road as he did go to the gravel. So your 36 driver there, small mistake for big consequences, and it means he's now got to try and catch back up to Paul Sims and Andrew Pike once more. Speaking of which, we now come back to see Shurat make his way onto lap number 34. But as he does so, we look back up to the front, Sharp and Davidson together. And the two Britons right now still fighting, but as we said only months ago, these two, it does seem as though this is more play fighting between them at the moment. A bit of a to me to you. And indeed, the fastest lap of the race, the previous lap from Kieran Sharp, a 1 minute 38.50 on a relatively high tank of fuel, but also fresh tyres. And right now, you can imagine your number 23 driver here doing everything he can, pulling out all the stops, but so is Tom Davidson. And with a gap of 13.5 seconds to Max Moron, definitely making that battle of the win become a two-driver affair. But we look down to those who are a lap down or more at the moment. We come to Team Luke Webb's Luke Webb as he heads up towards Hawthorns himself. And right now the 174 driver running in 14th place, hasn't given up to be fair to him, and he has now made 3 pit stops, his most recent one coming on lap number 29 of his race. He's on lap 31 of his race at the moment, and we're still doing a good job. Oh, it goes round there, as soon as I'm about to praise him, commentator's curse comes in, and I do apologise in advance, Luke, if you do watch his back afterwards and think, well, it's the commentator's curse that sent him for a spin, but he's not going to give up there. Rear of the car just letting go to a degree, and I suspect he's hit the apex curve a bit too high. It's unsettled the rear end of the car, and the Briton now gets it back on track. But he's definitely now going to put him a bit further down in the running order, and he is now 3 laps down compared to the leaders. But just ahead of him, we do have Nazari Nish, the Dobry Aranok driver, and well, the Ukrainian, having had that power cut issue locally, he was forced to leave the car, but he's now made his way back into the car, so he's carrying on, and his target is to try and close down David Drury for DHD Racing. Well, the gap between the two of them, 36 seconds. But I think Nish will be a little bit sad that his rival, who's had some scraps with so far today, Ben Holmes, who owned Racing Gold Team, had to retire, and therefore he's a bit of a lonely 13th place at the moment, because it did seem as though as soon as the two of them found each other on circuit, sparks would fly. Some very entertaining ones at that. But here's David Drury, and the DHD Racing driver, who earlier on did have a bit of a big incident, and that cost him a lot of time. He had a subsequent couple of incidents after making his pit stop, and also did spend quite a bit of time in the in fact, he had one of the shorter pit stops out there, I should clarify. But David right now keeping his head down and chasing after Charlie Morgan. Lap times between himself and Morgan, well, his previous lap, not a strong one, but it has been one scattered with mistakes. What about this time as he heads towards the line? Well, for Charlie Morgan, it is going to be a 40.12. For David Drury, by comparison, it is going to be a 47.56. So not a great lap from Drury again. Charlie Morgan right now pulling away. Morgan currently the last of your runners who are effectively a lap down for only the race in Stance Nation, and he would be a lot further towards the front if it were not for that mistake coming through Paddock Hill Bend on lap number 4, which saw him in the end being collected by another driver, and well, both drivers with damage to the cars having to get themselves back into the running. Of course, Morgan therefore has made 2 pit stops. He's had to use his fast repair, pitting at the end of lap number 4. And after that, he's taken his first strategic pit stop on lap 29. So a bit of an offset strategy. But again, we are curious to see whether we will have some rain come back later on. And if it does, well, suddenly those who are on offset strategies or more unique ones, they may be able to use that to their advantage. Dave Wood running 10th. He did have that very long first pit stop, and that was the speeding into the pit lane plus his actual pit stop time. So whereas it should have been approximately around about a minute long pit stop as he was planned, it was almost 2 minutes long instead. Number 13 driver falling back to 10th place and trying to chase down the likes of John Metcalf. Only to race and needs a swear jar. And here is John Metcalf at the moment in the number 77. And well, given he starts in 7th and he's running in 9th for the moment, I think he'll feel as though there's more work to be done. But then again, there's a lot of distance still in this race. As he heads towards the timing line, well, let's give you a quick recap of your top 10. As we've been talking about those who are a lap down or so, but we come back to the front, and it is Kieran Sharp who currently leads to the Paul Walsh fan club, having started from the back of the field as part of a gentleman's agreement between the TSRC staff drivers. None of them setting a lap time in qualifying, but definitely showing they've got the pace to lead the race in the practice session, the build-up, and he is leading at the moment. But behind him, Tom Davidson, the man who joined him starting from the back of the field, and the Climax Racing with the Sim Racing Collective driver has worked with Sharp all the way through. Perhaps he's not had the easiest of runs past those. They've caught it on the way, but to be fair, he's never let Sharp go, and these two really are your big belligerents at the front. They have a 17.3 second gap to Max Ron for Sim Motorsport Endurance, the driver who started second on the grid and spent the opening, what was half an hour of the race, batting hard with Harry Fletcher, taking the lead at certain points, losing at others. But then, of course, with Sharp and Davidson coming on through, well, they all did lose out to a degree, and Max Ron, since then, has just been dropped by his two rivals, and instead is now running a lonely third place. He would have had the company of Harry Fletcher, but Fletcher quite recently having to retire from the race due to what was a big brush with the barrier, it would seem, although it was a technical issue going into Paddock Hill Bend that saw him almost hit the tyre barrier there, and then subsequently something else wrong with the car, because we've not seen him come back since, sadly, and, well, technical difficulties keeping Harry Fletcher at bay. But Max Ron running in third, and right now a 9-second gap to Andrew Pike for TSRC hard and long manshaft. Well, the driver who would have been able to move forward didn't have it go forward, as we do have a bit of surprise there. And, well, that's caught me by surprise, so much so my heart has jumped out of its chest. And that is, we do have a safety car that has been called, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I presume that safety car has been called midway through the race there, not for perhaps an incident on the circuit, but it has been definitely called. In fact, I think we do have an associated incident for it, and I think it has been called for this for John Metcalf. Let's just take a look. And this was John Metcalf making his way only moments ago in towards what was Sterling's Bend, as he made his way through, taking a bit too wide. Well, no such moment with the barrier as such, so I think the safety car has perhaps been called as one of the sort of mid-competition cautions that you will see in American racing series, such as NASCAR, and this is going to group the field back up. So, has been called by the organisers. Will lead to everyone coming back together, and will only run for approximately 2 to 3 laps, but Kieran Sharp right now will know that lead that he and Tom Davison have crafted out is suddenly going to be completely neutralised, as they will catch the safety car. I believe it'll be waiting for him. There it is, going through Paddock Hill Bend with the iRacing automated safety car, the Porsche 911. Kieran Sharp right now, as he parks up behind it, we'll suddenly see the field all come back together, and this will extend the middle stint as well, because they'll be running at a much lower pace. When, well, a much lower pace, less fuel being used, and this is going to give a lot of drivers an opportunity to get right back into the thick of the racing. And well, suddenly that gap from Max Ron to Andrew Pike of 10 seconds, that will come down. It will be neutralised essentially. Then we do have Yuri Shura, the only racing the sweat driver. However, we're not for his contact with Max Ron when they were batting for second place whilst chasing Harry Fletcher. He'll be right up there as well, but he's been trying to give chase to Andrew Pike after the pair of them passed their way past Paul Sims. However, it did seem as though Shura lost out and therefore has dropped back a little bit, but this will bring him right back in to the mix, with Paul Sims running in 6th place, the man who started in 4th, lost out a little bit earlier on, but has lost out in particular to the faster drivers coming charging through the field, but he hasn't given up yet, running in 6th place and enjoying himself out there, with John Shorter meanwhile running in 7th by comparison, starting 8th place. I do believe this is still John Shorter in the car, so I don't know what's happened there with regards to the 2-driver entry of Richard Phillips also being in the car. We're definitely John Short, as we understand, in the car at the moment. But again, it might be the fact that we're just not getting the data coming through as to who's in the car and who is not. That can happen, to be fair. So therefore, don't quote us if it is Richard Phillips in the car. Richard's doing a good job. If it's John in the car, John's doing a good job. They both have, to be fair so far. We know the RPMS SimSport team, the 707, rather than the 22 as originally designated, does consist of Richard Phillips and John Shorter today. Our only team out there, there's a 2-driver pair. But as the team Elliott Lewis car of Elliott Lewis carries on, running there in 8th at the moment, bringing with him John Metcalf, only to racing needs a swear jar. Well, suddenly we can see them all grouping back together, and well, both of these drivers having very different races. John Metcalf losing out from 7th early on and slipping down the field, whereas meanwhile Elliott Lewis has been steadily making some progress. And that is really the stories. As Sharp into the pit lane. So he's decided he's abdicated the lead here under the safety car. The pit lane is open and Sharp is in. Is this just purely for fuel at the moment to extend what will be the second stint? We've only got 55 minutes to go. And there is the risk of rain at any point during this final hour, particularly in the last half an hour. We've got about a 40% rain chance, and as we heard from in the pre-race interviews with Nazri Nish, the Dobry Renault driver, mentioning the fact there did seem to be the guarantee of some rain coming with about 45 minutes of the race remaining, as he called it. Well, in fact, saying that maybe in the final 20 minutes the race being a bit more accurate. But again, that forecast can change. The weather direction can shift, And so we have not had rain come back at the moment, but all drivers out there at this time, and Tom Davidson now takes the effective lead with Kieran Sharp opting to come into the pits. But as he leaves the pit lane, he'll catch back up to the field. Those who are a lap down, I don't think they'll get waved on through. I don't think they will be able to get back onto the lead lap, so therefore they will have to accept the fact they are a lap down and still running with the pack. Kieran Sharp right now falls to the back of the order, down to 7th place on that lead lap, which John Metcalf and Dave Wood still not able to clear him. As Elliot Lewis into the pit lane as well, so this safety car is definitely throwing a spanner in the works for a few of the strategists out there. As we do take a big sip there. And good to see several of you still tuning in and enjoying the racing. We've still got a bit more time remaining in this one, no doubt about it. 55 minutes, but we are under a safety car at the moment, which has been called as a bit of a competition caution, if you will. It will cause the field to bunch back up, and then we'll be very eager to go racing once again. But who have we lost from this race along the way? We have lost story-wise Luke Webb, Harry Fletcher, Jay Walsh, who's in the pit lane, but he's been there now for the best part of 16 minutes. So something tells me we won't be seeing the MVG Motorsport car making its way back out. We also lost Ben Holmes and Mickey Ford. So we have had a grand total of 5 casualties on this race out of 18 starters. We still do have 13 runners remaining. And we still got just under an hour to go. But as the field groups up behind Tom Davidson, the lights are off on the safety car, so we'll be green flag racing once again very shortly. So it's over to Tom Davidson to resume the racing. Safety car peels an in, so Davidson controls the pack. And just like that, he builds up the speed, and we are green, green, green once again as the drivers make their way across that timeline. Green flag waves down the left-hand side of your picture from Barry Flagg. Or Barney Flagg, I do believe it actually is, but Barry Flagg is our British counterpart, if you will. And Tom Davidson right now holds on to that lead as they head up the hill. But as they do, Max Ron now finds himself back in 2nd place. He'll be wondering where Kieran Sharp is, but he won't have long to think about that, because behind there's Andrew Pike, there's Yuri Shura. Paul Sims is just split between them by what is the 2-lap down car of Nazarene Ish. And then we do see John Shorter, Kieran Sharp and John Metcalf all together. But this field being right back into the pack. And a bit of elbows out racing there between 2 drivers. So John Metcalf finds himself being unlapped by none other than Charlie Morgan. So Morgan decides he wants to try and get himself back through this field, albeit for Morgan, I think he'll enjoy the fight, no doubt about it. The only problem is he's now got to try and unlap himself from every car in front if he wants to get back onto that lead lap. Andrew Pike now being pushed on by Yuri Shura as they come through Hawthorne's Bend, and the Sim Racing Collective Hardon Long Manshaft driver still find himself enjoying a bit of a fight. But Shuri was with him earlier on until they got dropped as a result of the battling around Paul Sims's car. But is this now going to be a bit of a reset of that situation? And we'll see the field spread out like it did midway through the opening stint. Albeit, I think a lot of incidents contributed to that. Will we see as many incidents this time? Well, as Kieran Sharp makes his way around the outside of Nish, and we'll see John Metcalf try to do the same very shortly. Sharp right now not having the best of restarts here, and in fact losing some time to the likes of John Shorter and Sims. But remember, Sharp did come in, and in doing so has extended his fuel tank a bit further. So he has got a bit of a heavier car, and that might be holding him back for a bit as our leaders make their way onto lap number 41. Coming through, Davidson open a bit of a gap as Andrew Pike right now keeps more on and Shura behind him. But Andrew Pike has found his way up into 2nd place. That's happened only moments ago. And how did it happen? Here's a replay. So that was coming out of Stirling's Bend. Something tells me Max Ron's gone a bit too deep through the corner. Yes, he had. And in the end, made sure not to pick up an off track, and with it, a instant point. But Andrew Pike there was never going to say no to blasting his way past. Let me come back to your live racing. And Davidson trying to get away from Pike as quickly as he can. Andrew Pike right now be hoping that as he is at the head of the field, he will now have the opportunity here to show what pace he's got and be able to close back up to Davidson, bringing the Polish and the Dutch drivers with him. 2 seconds behind is Paul Sims, Fernando Horace racing. And for him, he is putting the cap already to John Shorter. Shorter, meanwhile, has now got to worry perhaps about Charlie Morgan, but more importantly, Kieran Sharp going up the inside there, as Morgan does not fight Sharp at all. He is already a lap down effectively, so therefore the game plan will be to tuck in and follow Sharp around and use him as a bit of a pace car, if he will, as he rolls off Westfield Bend. But Kieran Sharp here getting ready to make another move, trying to take 6th place back. We know he's got race-winning pace in the car. it's definitely still going to be a bit of a challenge, as we do have an update from the pit lane with regards to Harry Fletcher, saying that sadly for him, his pedal cable has given way, and therefore that's why he did have to throw the car off the road in the end due to, I believe it's the brake pedal, unless I'm mistaken, maybe the throttle pedal, but one of those pedals has gone, and his race is all over, and well, not the way to go whatsoever, and that was the issue that did keep recurring, if maybe you remember in the Sim Racing Collective powered Motorsport UK Esports Rookie Sports Car Cup, and well, that issue really its ugly head at a nasty time. But the Shark makes his way around the outside of Kieran Shorter. Lovely move there. And, well, make his way now up into 6th place. Well, John Metcalf still behind, as Andrew Pike almost now within attacking distance of Tom Davidson. But Max Ron and Yuri Shura both getting very eager to close back up as well. So these drivers stay nice and tight together. And, well, we're waiting to see which way this is going to go. Whether Davidson can keep safe, or whether Pike has got his number, or whether Max Ron and Yuri Shura decide not to play ball here as they go deeper and deeper into what is this extended second stint as a result of 2 laps behind the safety car. Oh, hold up a second. John Shorter just parked in the middle of the grass there. Now, what's happened to the RPM Simsport team? That's not normal. Let's take a look back if we can. So this was Shorter making his way out of Druids, and as he did so, coming down the hill, and, well, I get the feeling he's just going to pull over here. Well, it's got to be a technical issue with the car, surely, because that car's been parked up. And in the end, for John Shorter, who was right in the thick of the fight inside the top 10, just comes to a halt and is going no further at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. Brakes are being held on there for John Shorter. So I think he does want to go racing once again. Could be a technical issue. Alternatively, there, something else has gone wrong. But he's not towing to the pit lane. So Shorter is still out there, but he falls down to 10th place. And at this moment, every second he's losing, well, he's just falling further and further behind the field until he goes green flag racing once again. But leaders make the way now onto lap 43, and well, as they come through, still got quite cloudy sky around us here, a bit of sunshine poking its way through, but we do have a few clouds on the horizon, which might be posing that risk of rain that's expected. But John Shorter has towed to the pit lane as a result of parking up there on the inside of the grass at Graham Hill Bend. So they decide to get the car into the pits. There it is. And, well, the RPS Simsport driver won't be going anywhere for some time now with the tow time. And we'll have to see if we can find out what exactly has happened to him and the team a little bit later on if we can. But as Davidson rolls his way through the corner still, right now, keeping Pike, Moron and Shura behind. Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, I believe making a move there on Paul Sims, so now taking over 5th place. And a quick move being made there, but how exactly did he do it? Here's the replay. So Sims going a bit too wide there coming out of Graham Hill Bend. That gave Sharp more momentum than perhaps he was expecting to be able to go for this move. Looked up the inside and literally like clockwork and out of the book of overtakes here at Brands Hatch. Kieran Sharp gets that move done. But we just had this drama for David Drury. And this was your DHD racing driver making his way in towards the opening corner. Paddock Hill Bend, carried in way too much speed there, and in the end went to the tyre barrier and could not glide off the barrier. Instead went for a big whack, and well, so much so the car being obscured there by what was one of the billboards. And well, David Drury having to tow to pit lane there. Bit of a mistake under braking, and I think stamina might be starting to come what is a big fact here with regards to our drivers and concentration levels. Now, bearing in mind, a lot of drivers competing from the European continent, in fact, all of them competing for the European continent as we understand it. We have had a heat wave here recently, although it has calmed down, at least in the United Kingdom, although it may not have on the European mainland continent, and that'll be sapping up our drivers, because whilst the racing is not real, I'll tell you one thing, sitting in these sim rigs, particularly in a room that has not got air conditioning in, you'll be seeing that room push upwards. If the outdoor temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, you are looking at a room that's probably hitting about 40 degrees Celsius, depending on how well ventilated the room is, and it becomes excruciatingly uncomfortable being in that rig, much like it would be in the car. Now, of course, these Mazda MX-5 Cup cars, they don't have roofs on them. They do have open tops and a roll cage fitted to them, so quite a bit of ventilation for the driver, but still, it can be a bit painful inside the rig. But Tom Davidson right now, whatever pain he might be going through, he's pushing on as we look to a man who definitely knows all about sweating, because it's the sweat for Only to Racing's Yuri Shura, and we ride on board him here as he comes down the hill. Now a bit further back as he heads through Pilgrim's Drop, almost a second there to the top 3. This isn't a bad place necessarily to be because, yes, you're a bit further back, you're not quite gaining the tow that your rivals are for the next car in front, but you also have a lot more visibility of what's going in front. So if there is an incident for any reason, you suddenly have enough time to potentially react to it, and sure as well still getting the benefits of a triple tow. It's just not as strong a benefit there. Plus also being further back, the effects of dirty air not going to overheat the front end of the car as much, and it does work out. Now, I have just been informed in my ear that it has been John Shorter in the car for what has been the first and that second stint of the RPM SimSport team. And in fact, now it is Richard Phillips who has taken over the car. So perhaps there's a mistake there, and perhaps they hadn't put Richard Phillips in the car at the end of the first stint, which was the plan. And suddenly they've had to swap things around at very short notice. Alternatives, Richard Phillips said, John, go park the car up. I'm jumping in now. Thank you very much. But either way, we have got Richard Phillips in the car there, which is great to see. So it has been John in the car for the first 2 stints, but here is the proof in the pudding. Richard Phillips is now at the helm of the RPM SimSport car, and I do wonder whether he's going to be in the car for the remainder. And well, if John does get the opportunity to pop by the YouTube chat, he might be able to fill us in on what exactly has happened there. But either way, definitely a bit of drama for the RPM SimSport team, and drama they didn't perhaps want. But as the drivers make the way on through, right now, Phillips definitely keeping his head down as best he possibly can here. Now he's got a lot of work to do. He's got 1:15 to close up to Charlie Morgan firstly, as he's fallen outside the top 10. Morgan still has right behind him there the car of John Metcalf, and well, he's trying to drop Metcalf to put a lap, to get a lap back on him, or to get back onto the lead lap. But John's definitely not an easy customer to shake off there. As you can see, the lead lap driver as he makes his way down towards Hawthorns. But back up to the front we go, and as we do, we'll maximum resound a bit off track. That's cost him some time to Davidson and Pike, so it's cost him a second. So the top 4 is starting to spread out a little bit more again. And the drivers roll the way through, and right now the number 28 driver with Andrew Pike behind. There's nothing between them. It really is at this time. Davidson and Pike keeping each other honest, as we did see Davidson and Sharp do so earlier on. But it comes over very grey over the circuit once again. 43 minutes left to go on a final lap. Is this the risk of rain that's materialising? We did have a very grey period in the first hour as well, but no rain fell at that point. Now we've got some very grey cloud, and well, our cameras are adjusted to be able to pick out that rain. Should it start to fall, we will see it quite quickly on the cameras. And well, Tom Davidson right now not showing any signs backing off here. Andrew Pike as well. I wonder if fuel saving right now is going to become quite precious to the drivers. And already with that safety car, what was looking to be with as much fuel saving as possible, as shown by Kieran Sharp, about 45 minutes you can do. Well, put the pit stop in, that's a minute. So add 45 minutes on to 46 minutes into the race. You are looking at about an hour and a half of the race being done by the time they come into the pits for their second and final pit stop. Perhaps a little bit more with the safety car. Perhaps you're going now to about an hour and 35 minutes being done. It is going to be a short final stint here if we don't see any rainfall. If we see rainfall, however, when does it come and what does it do to the circuit? And remember, you don't just simply come in as soon as the rain falls unless it's very heavy. You do stay out there for a bit. There is a transition window between the slick and the wet tyre. And it normally, if it's light rain, it does take about 2 or 3 laps before it happens. And it all comes down to how quickly you're losing the slick tyre temperature, and you're starting to see patches of water stand on the track surface. They're the scariest parts. If the rain is not standing, it's not as bad, because the slick tyre, do keep in mind, a slick, unlike a conventional road tyre, has no tread block on it. It is a very flat surface tyre. It cannot displace water well at all, whereas conventional road tyres, treaded tyres, that's what the wet tyre is. It has a tread block on it, which enables the tyre to displace water from the tarmac, and it enables that tyre to get grip, particularly when water starts to stand on the tarmac surface. The only time you want to go onto that wet tyre is when you really start to notice there's that gathering of rain, but also the fact you are losing slick tyre temperature, so therefore you can't burn your way through the wet patches of water on the track. And that's what's got to be on the minds of our drivers right now. They won't want to come into the pits to change that tyre unless they absolutely have to, and if they can blend it in with their second and final strategic stop to take on the fuel to get them to the end of the race, it is going to be a huge time save there. But no rainfall in the moment at least. I can't see it on my commentary booth windows either. So therefore we are just waiting right now to see what the weather has in store. But it has come over very dark here in the county of Kent. And well, that is normally indicative of a sign that there is a risk of rain, unless it's just simply teasing us here and none is going to fall. But looking back to Kieran Sharp, the man who, of course, came into the pits and decided to make that second pit stop under the safety car, put it into the back of the field. But he has really re-emerged. He's gone from 7th all the way up to 5th already. He's only 2.5 seconds behind the leading quartet. Now, the one thing that Sharp does have to his advantage is the fact he's got more fuel in the car, so therefore he can go deeper in this stint. But even so, we're not expecting he's going to be able to complete the entirety of the stint. We expect he will complete the entirety of the race in this stint. We suspect he will need to come with about 15 to 10 minutes of the race remaining to take a quick splash and dash. But as we do see their confirmation with regards to, I believe, I want to say that is John Holmes. So, as a result, he has got a bit wrong there for John Holmes, and I think that's why he had to park up the car, and there was an issue with his pedals that happened twice, and it's currently being investigated. So therefore, sadly, that's why John Holmes had to come in. We are just going to triple check that we are talking about the right driver. Bear with us. I think so, because we've had the driver give that message in the official Discord, which has been used to run the event, albeit it's been run under usernames here rather than driver names. So that's why we are trying to get that little bit of information at the moment. And, well, we'll find out when we can. But definitely some technical issues blighting another driver there. And it's all going a bit wrong. But we also want to find out if we can. No, in fact, that was not John Shorter. We can confirm the driver saying that they've had pedal issues is David Drury there, DHD racing driver. So sadly, it's not worked out for him at all. That's why he's had to retire from the race for now. It's because of his pedals disconnecting twice. And, well, the number 15 driver in the pits at the moment and not going anywhere. He's currently 13th, but he will be several laps down now in the field. He'll be the best part of 6 laps down at this time should he rejoin the racing. As we come back to the front of the field right now, no signs of technical issues blighting Derrickson nor Pike, and same from Ron and Shura. And Yuri Shura getting closer and closer as really we are losing all the daylight here, albeit we're not going to go into night time. I can promise you that. We are going to finish this race well within daylight hours, but definitely the darkness coming over right now. This might throw a few drivers out. The fact that the brake markers they have under brilliant sunshine may not be as visible. As we do hear the screech of the tyres of Max Ron's car, and trying to carry as much speed as he can through, goodness me, Sheen corner. There it goes. I was about to say Sterling's because that's what they've made the way through. But here comes a move from Yuri Shura, picking up the pace. And as he makes way on through, up the inside he goes. Too wide on entry. And a bit of a biff and an elbow there. A bit of door-to-door contact. But the Dutchman makes his way on through, and Max Ron tucks in behind. But this now means they're 3.5 seconds behind the leaders, and Kieran Sharp now only 7 tenths behind himself. So we're getting closer. But things are getting a little bit tense out there between all of them as they come towards that final half an hour. That patch of water coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, that has not dried off at all, to be fair. That puddle has stayed there since the start. It's shortened a little bit, but it's still there, which amazes me a little bit, given the conditions we've had here today. But Max Ron looks up the inside of Yuri Shura, and this is part 2 of their battle from earlier on. And it continues as meanwhile Kieran Sharp now, he gets in grass trying to look around the outside. Can he make the move under braking versus Moron? The answer is going to be no. But what he can do is try to switch it back here. But he finds a face full of rear bumper off the Sim Motorsport Endurance number 89. And Kieran Sharp right now keeps his head down here as they power their way up towards the right-hander of Hawthorne's. But Sharp knowing that he needs to be decisive about this, because the longer it takes him to pass Moron, the bigger risk he has of losing out versus Yuri Shura, who could try to break away. So when's Sharp going to go for the move? Well, one place to go for it would be Sterling's. It's a typical overtaking position, but you need a really good run out of Sheen Curve to make it happen. So here they come up through Dingledale, up through the biggest gradient rise on the circuit. With that right-hander, and well, Moron does go a little bit wide there. I think in fear of having to go defensive, but Sharp in the end pulls the racing line a bit soon. And tries to get the better run off the corner. He will do so. So here goes Sharp looking for the potential move in towards clearways around the outside. 2 wide they're going to end here. Can Sharp get this done? Onto the brakes. Not quite in the end. Being made to hang out wide. And in the end, we was on the outside line. The door was always going to close there, to be fair. And will Sharp decide to take a bit of a rallycross approach, but does rejoin right behind. Max Ron putting on a very solid defence there. Smart driving from him. And right now, Kieran Sharp's got to go back to the drawing board. This is nowhere near as easy as it was the first time around, albeit understandably the first time he went around doing it. I think then it was because of the conditions of the circuit, plus also the fact that everyone's fighting each other. But right now, everyone really getting into nitty gritty here as they'll make their way 2 wide down the hill. Run off of Druids there was monstrous from Sharp. Max Ron goes very defensive then to Graham Hill Bend. He's getting used to that defensive line now. He's no longer overcooking that corner as much as he used to. And Kieran Sharp definitely, I think, trying to condition Max Ron into going so defensive here until he can find a way past. But Yuri Shura is not dropping the pair. We would have thought he would have been able to, but here comes Sharp once again then, 2 wide, and right now as he makes his way up towards what will be that right-hander, And can he make the magic happen here? Through in towards the sweeping crest of Hawthorns. The answer's going to be he'll try. Too wide. Max 1 still on the inside there. And the Polish driver right now is not going to give up. Too wide all the way through. We're enjoying this battle right now. He's really getting stuck in. And he will stay ahead. Lovely bit of defensive driving again there. Kieran Sharp knowing when to back off versus when to attack. And right now the Polish driver really throwing everything at this as much as he can, but it's just not working out at this time, and instead being made to wait and be patient all the way through. Building up the speed and heading in towards what will be the right-hander of clearways right now. Or two why they come into the brakes, and Ron still going defensive versus the Paul Fan Cup car. And well, these two drivers headed around there. I do see my face in the car again. Goodness me, how they managed to get that in HD. They say I've been caught in 4K, but we catch this battle in 1080p as Max Ron sees Pike, not Pike, it'll be another Sharp trying to go around the outside, and we're still going to work there, but he goes to the switchback this time. Kieran Sharp now starts to throw another trick in the book at this, and we'll under-brake it here on the inside. He's got all the space to play with into Druid, and well, he sent Moron to go a little bit too wide out of Paddock Hill. He's made it work out, and down the hill they go. And well, here comes what'll be on the inside. He lunges back in, and Kieran Sharp right now all the way around the outside. He's got to be able to rejoin the end. Moron lets him come back onto the road. Quite politely, I say so. And in towards 30's bed right now. Still too wide all the way round. Oh, they come together. And it's Max Moron there. Goes a little bit deep into the corner on the inside. And Kieran Sharp has nowhere to go. And Max Moron in the end gets turned on around there. We're going to get a replay of that. Paul Sims scoops up 5th place as Max Moron immediately gets himself back onto the racing tarmac. But what exactly went wrong there to end such a brilliant battle? Well, here's the quick replay to explain. Now, as they made the way into the brain zone, can we get a better camera angle of this? Under braking, it looks as though Moron's has just gone a little bit deep under braking and carried the car into the braking zone deeper than he planned. Here's one of the other camera angles, but they're all facing to the side of the cars here. Under braking though, I think that camera angle does show you that Max 1 has gone slightly deep. Can we get the on board of his car? I think we can. This was from the gyro camera. This will tell the story. Let's listen in. And you can see there, he's trying to outbrake Sharp, but he's gone so deep into the corner, and that's what's led to it happening. He's essentially outbroken himself, understeered under braking, and then Kieran Sharp's got nowhere to go. He's gone to turn in, and he's found the number 89's been right there on his inside, but coming across his bumper, and well, I think it's going to be considered a racing incident there, but unfortunately, at the time, Max Ron will find now he drops a long way down, but definitely there, pressured into an error in that battle, but still nothing can be taken away. An incredible fight between them, and we've still got a little bit longer to go in this race. Still plenty more fun and excitement out there, and still some question marks out as to what potential incidents and drama could happen right before this is all said and done. But as they come on around, right now Tom Davidson here, the Climax Racing driver, looking to be in a bit of a happy place. And well, as he makes his way onwards, Andrew Pike there will stay in behind at the moment. And well, the Harden Long Manshaft driver has been pushing Davidson along for the best part now of what has been the last 20 minutes of this race since they come back off the safety car. And well, the British drivers continue to work together as Paul Sims into the pit lane. Now this will be surely for his final stop of the day. He's come in, he's put a fresh set of tyres on the car and some fuel into the car. And Nazri and Nish comes in as well, albeit a couple of laps down, but you can't fault the man. Carrying on, car comes down off the jacks and no sign of going to a wet tyre. Staying on the slick tyre there as the car gets pulled up on one side and then the other. Indeed, each tyre changed one at a time. They're not changed in pairs. And meanwhile, Davidson and Pike pushing onwards, but we suspect they will go a little bit deeper into this stint. They're not going to be done quite yet. Then onwards towards what will be for them at lap number 43. It's still Davidson and Pike together with a 7-second gap to Yuri Shura. But as Nazri and Nish comes out of the pit lane, he'll come out behind them. So now he will be emerging, effectively what is 3 laps down, the Ukrainian driver. But he hasn't given up yet, and his target will be to see if he can catch up to Richard Phillips if he can. Phillips, of course, taking over the car in a bit of untraditional fashion from John Shorter. We're not quite sure what went wrong, and John Shorter had to park the car in the grass at what was Graham Hill Bend. They towed it to the pit lane, and Richard Phillips back out there now for RPMS Sim Sports, all the way, I suspect, to at least the end of this stint, if not the remainder of the race. Still having fun out there, no doubt about it. Good to see Richard out there in the car. As he powers his way on down, Well, Charlie Morgan will be his target to chase after, albeit Morgan almost a minute up the road. And the only Racing Stance Nation driver still pushing on as best he possibly can. Going up in towards Druid's hairpin at the moment, but he in turn is 1 minute and 6 seconds behind Paul Sims, who has just taken his final pit stop of the day. Morgan still has to take one more pit stop as we understand it, at least for the fuel, if not for tyres as well. As Dave Wood now for Onid Racing Drone Boys in, and well, as the 13 comes on in for its final scheduled stop for dry conditions at least. Well, we can see there the car coming down off of the Jackson one side, then the other, and well, drivers coming on through, including Paul Sims, who makes his way back up into 8th place, and Dave Wood will very likely be dropping back down to 9th place. He emerges from the pit lane. And here he goes, he does leave the pits, making his way onwards and up towards what will be Paddock Hill Bend. But now all we can do is focus on the road ahead of him and hope that no rain falls and forces him once more, as I suspect some other drivers out there will definitely be hoping that the rain may come to them and bring them back into what is the race. Yuri Shura comes on in, so that's going to be his final pit stop as he heads on down pit road. And he does so. That releases Kieran Sharp for now. But remembering, of course, Kieran Sharp on a bit of an offset strategy. Therefore, the British driver here going a bit longer. We suspect he'll go at least 4 to 5 laps longer than Davison, Pike and Shura, and also Moron in that sequence. We'll have to see what's to be. But Sharp, of course, lost a lot of time battling with Max Moron in that absolutely titanic battle. Max now into pit lane there, makes his way very quickly into his stall. Hopefully he's made that within the speed limit. John Metcalf in. So everyone is committing, by looks of things, to what is a stint on dry tyres at the very end. And if the rain does come, as a bit of sun starts to poke its way through the cloud, well, they'll all have to come in once again. But Darrington and Pike, they continue to try and survive out there for as long as they possibly can on that slick tyre, not wanting to come in until they absolutely have to. And this is all a bit of a gambit right now in making sure that, simply put, they don't end up having to come into the pits more than they need to. But that'll be the hard task here, and the fact the fuel tank is going to be what limits them as to how far they can go. The only other thing you could do in theory is just coming for a small splash and dash. The forecast is saying that rain is definitely going to fall. But then again, do you do that, or do you simply put the fuel in to get to the end, potentially change the tyres, and then wait and see if you're forced in one more time, or see if you can survive on a fresh set of slicks, which will have plenty of temperature in them if you are able to warm them up. And if it is very light rain, you may be able to finish the race on a slick tyre on a wet circuit. Although it will be challenging, it may be the better call there, at least a more time-efficient call. But time efficiency doesn't always develop into race safety. That's always a fault. Here they come across the line, up onto lap number 55. Half an hour still remaining. Back to Kieran Sharp, who's definitely bolting on. And in terms of his pace, he is lapping 4 tenths a lap faster at the moment compared to your top two. So at this rate or not, given it's a 9-second gap, you would imagine that is going to take him the best part of what will be around about 20 to 25 laps to close that gap down. That's not going to be enough at the moment. He's going to need to do a little bit more here. So ideally, he needs to be closing about 7 to 8 tenths a lap to bring himself in. But that's where the pit stops make the difference. That's where that extra stop does help him out parity-wise, because he can go longer and he can also fuel shorter when he comes in for a third and final strategic stop, presuming there's no rain that's going to fall. But Yuri Shura, he's re-emerged. He's running in 4th at the moment, so he's the first of the drivers who has taken their final pit stop as scheduled, and he is ahead by 3.4 seconds ahead of Elliot Lewis for Team Elliot Lewis. Although right now, should we point out, he has to take one more stop as we understand it, because he has been on a bit of an offset alternative strategy. And Max Moron, meanwhile, a bit further behind. He is the next driver who has completed all of his scheduled stops. Albeit battling here with Paul Sims, as Paul Sims looks to try and make his way past, and Sims does so there. So Max Moron being caught out a little bit by the Nando Horace racing driver, who's found his way through, and the number 4 now moves his way upwards. And well, a bit of a surprise there, and not a welcome one to be certain for some of these drivers. And as they do make the way on down, well, Paul Sims right now, I think, will be a little bit concerned here. The fact that Max Moron's there with him, but also the fact that Yuri Shura has really opened up a big gap. But perhaps the biggest concern is for Max Moron, who right now seems to have slipped off the pace a little bit. That previous lap was not a strong one. I actually do believe he had a bit of an off-track that's contributed to it. And here's a replay to explain. So this was when, in fact, you could already see there that Paul Sims had been closing quite rapidly. And Paul Sims had pitted 2 laps before, and Moron then went wide, and that was really the death knell to cause the move to occur. It was Moron had gone so wide that he had to back off the throttle and rejoin, and Sims went for the move around the outside there, fully committed. Moron did everything he could to defend for Sim Motorsport Endurance, but it was Paul Sims in getting that done, but then subsequently they have now swapped the places back as Paul Sims had a bit of a moment there into Westfield. How exactly he's ended up there in the gravel? Well, the answer simply put as he rejoins, but he drops behind John Metcalf as well. So we've got a replay to explain that, but before that, Tom Davidson and Andrew Pike have been into the pit lane, so they've taken their final scheduled stops, and Tom Davidson re-emerges ahead of Pike once again. Andrew Pike had the slightly shorter stop by 0.3 of a second, but end to end, Tom Davidson's won that battle in the pit stops, and Kieran Sharp, well, he's the only driver right now inside that top 5. Well, in fact, no, he's one of 2 drivers inside the top 5, including Elliot Lewis as well, who has yet to take their final schedule stop as we understand it. But Kieran Sharp now, we know, can go a bit longer, we expect, and he can go to about 15 minutes remaining, given he pitted during the safety car, and he used it, not quite as a free pit stop, but a much less goodness me, I'm trying to mix up my words here. Time, cost, effective pit stop. There we go. It has been a bit of a long day in the commentary booth here. You have to forgive me. And right now, your Porsche fan club driver, well, he's definitely trying to extract the most out of this as he's caught up to the back of Nazari Nish, albeit the Ukrainian driver does briefly step aside, respecting the blue flags. But Kieran Sharp won't be too upset about that because he has gained quite a bit by running the draft of the driver. And here they go then on to what for Sharp is lap number 57. Meanwhile, for Nish, it is lap number 54. But from them, let's come back to what exactly happened to Paul Sims, because he was ahead of Max Ron running in 6th place, and he's lost it all. But how did he lose it? And this was coming out of Hawthorne's Bend, and it was Max Ron on the inside. There was contact between the two of them. Oh, goodness me. Well, a bit of a contentious moment, that one now. Can we get a replay from the rear of Paul Sims' car? Yes, we can. Now, this is what it looked like, and in the end, Max Ron looked up the inside, came from quite far back. Was there an overlap? Arguably, no, would say Paul Sims. What it looked like on board from Moron's perspective, I think we can get a bit of an on board there. He saw the space, he wedged the place back, and I think, as much as the door was open, I think on reflection, it was a bit of a late move to the inside there from Moron. As much as he signalled it was coming, I think he was going into a space where the door was going to close, and something tells me the stewards may say to him afterwards, well, as much as the door was there, did you really need to go for it from that far back? But of course, reflection's a great thing. Driver at the time thought he could go for it and perhaps be brave on the brakes and was hoping that perhaps Paul Sims would open the door up a little bit more to be able to enable the two to swap back and forth. But unfortunately, that contact there has cost Paul Sims the best part of 2 places, because it's not just dropped him back behind Moron, but it's also seen John Metcalf get ahead of him, but on his racing needs a swear jar. Speaking of which, here is the flaming machine, and right now definitely trying to cook up a top 5 finish here, but to do so, well, he'll need to firstly make sure that he gets past Elliot Lewis, who has yet to take his final stop of the day, and he's going to need to chase down Max Ron, who is definitely sporting some front end damage now. But how much time it's costing him, that is going to be one of the question marks. But from them, as we do come back to your drivers running a bit further down, we do still have 12 runners in this race. We have sadly lost Luke Webb and most recently David Drury, of course. Well, here's Nazari Anish and the W Rannoch driver carrying on, and well, he is the best part of 2 minutes behind Richard Phillips, albeit it is a lap or two there that is a difference. Well, in fact, not quite a lap or two, it is a lap that makes the difference between the two of them, as Charlie Morgan makes his way on down at pit road, and the only racing Stance Nation driver heads on down here for what will be his final scheduled stop. It is going to be a third stop, and I suspect it will be dry tyres going on the car, or at least fuel going into the car here. Is it just going to be fuel? Because the car's not going onto the jacks at the moment. We will have to see. But as he has the car serviced, Dave Wood, well, he is currently the last of your lead lappers out there in the number 13 for the Owners Racing Drone Boy team, and still ahead of Paul Sims. Fernando Horace Racing. But through the clearways he comes, and as he does so, well, number 4 driver definitely getting a bit of a move on, but not quite on the pace of Metcalf and Moron. But I suspect with the damage he's had to the car, he's having to relearn how the car wants to drive, and that's where he'll find the time once again. As that time around, John Metcalf a 40.19, Paul Sims a 40.72. So with the best part of half a second in the favour of Metcalf. Metcalf is definitely gaining, and well, Max Ron proving a bit too quick by comparison, a second faster. So right now it does look as though Metcalf and Sims may be destined to be playing a game of cat and mouse, albeit Charlie Morgan is between the two of them right now. The number 69 driver in 10th, a lap down on a good number of drivers, and still trying to see him get to the end there, as we do see Paul Sims using all the road, plus some of the runoff area there. And I'll tell you one thing, Jonathan Palmer, the owner of MSV and the owner of this circuit, Brands Hatch being one of several circuits in the United Kingdom under the MSV Group's ownership, won't be too pleased about the fact they're seeing a driver trim the grass. Indeed, these circuits in the United Kingdom very well maintained by their staff, all for Jonathan Palmer and the MSV group. And normally when there's an incident on the grass, very quickly the grass is replanted, or indeed it is regrown as best as possible for universal grass layering. There is something that they're very keen about. But meanwhile, we're very keen to see what's the next development as Kieran Sharp carries on, because Tom Davidson and Andrew Pike, well, they'll be thinking, are they going to beat Kieran Sharp here on strategy? Is it the 2-stop versus the 3-stop? Which one of those strategies is going to work out? Sharp gambling by pitting under the safety car to make the ground. But meanwhile, Davidson and Pike are responding, with Andrew Pike setting a fastest lap of the race only a moment ago, a 38.30. A monster lap there from the hard long manshaft driver, and the TSRC driver right now definitely getting a move on here as he makes his way over the rise. About 21 seconds back, Yuri Shura, and I think Shura's had a bit of a moment because he has lost a huge amount of time. Can we get a replay to explain? I think we can. And this was Shura making his way out of what was none other than turn number 7, heading towards Sterling. So coming out of Sheen Curve, and we went very wide, then rejoined, but nowhere near as big an incident as we perhaps suspected. So perhaps there's something else going wrong. He also did take a much longer period of time in the pit lane by comparison with Pike and Davidson, spending 34 seconds stationary compared to their 27 seconds stationary. So that's where he has lost a sizable portion of time, plus also that error. As Kieran Sharp into the pit lane, and as his car sits there parked up, we look to the blimp view. It is a bit foggy and misty, but what you can see, there's Tom Davidson making his way up towards what will be clear ways. And meanwhile, Kieran Sharp has been serviced and he leaves the pits. And for Kieran Sharp, this has worked out a treat. He's going to come back out, and it's not just going to be just ahead of Davidson and Pike. He comes out ahead for the Paul Walsh fan club, well ahead of Climax Racing Machine by the tune of around about 3 seconds. So Kieran Sharp gambling there by pitting under the safety car to shorten his final pit stop, and will fight his way through, taking the lead on the road and then coming into the pits. Kieran Sharp, by going 4 laps longer, has made the magic happen. So Davidson and Pike now, well, they'll know what they're dealing with here. It is a fight for second place, unless they can put that fight aside with 20 minutes to go, including that final lap, and potentially close down the gap to Sharp. If not, then Kieran Sharp may now have this race under control. We'll have to see whether that's the way it's going to work out, as we do come back to Yuri Shura. They're the only racing the Sweat driver, who right now running in a lonely 4th place. Being slowly caught up to by Max Rom, but that's a gap whereby he's going to be managing that gap all the way to the end. It's a 10-second gap, slowly coming down in the favour of the Sim Motorsport Endurance driver. But your top 3 now definitely seems to be locked in to a degree, although we are definitely seeing that your race leader of Kieran Sharp, or can he just simply now keep that gap open? If it drops below 2 seconds, Davidson and Pike will start to get a little bit of a distant tow, or a distant slipstream draft, and that will help them close that gap down even further. It's within a second where it becomes the most notable, but Kieran Sharp right now definitely putting off a bit of a masterclass here in terms of using strategy to his advantage. But as they come on through the corners right now, we can see Sharp definitely has got to keep doing it on the road, lap after lap and time out of time again, if he wants to bring on home this victory. It's not all guaranteed. That's going to be the tough part here to the finish, is that he's got to be absolutely consistent, and he's got to keep banging in those laps and making sure that Davidson and Pike, whatever they do, he's able to respond to a match at least, if not surpass. Paul Sims and Dave Wood, well, these two getting quite close together, and, well, I wouldn't have expected these two to be near each other, but here they are, as right now Paul Sims definitely struggling for pace out there, as Dave Wood, by comparison, is not. Right on board the dashboard here, and, well, you can definitely see no rain falling on the circuit. The circuit's just not going the way of Paul Sims in its evolution. Also perhaps damage on the car. Wood thinks about that move. It's not going to quite come from at the moment. And, well, the British driver make his way around, and as we do continue to ride on board with him, well, number 13 try heads in towards what will be clear ways, looking for that prospect of a move. What's it going to be as he rolls his way through? The answer is not quite at the moment. Instead, just time to wait a little bit longer, but you can definitely see there how eager he is to go on the attack. And we can't blame him for it, to be fair. He'd like to take the 8th place, and he'd like to chase after John Metcalf, who he's quicker than by 4 tenths a lap on average. But first things first, he's got clear Sims. Wipers go on there. That's just because of the spray off of the puddle at Paddock Hill Bend's exit. That's not because we've got any rainfall at this time. But a close battle between these two, and Paul Sims definitely looking vulnerable. And remember what we said earlier on about Paul Sims. He's one of those drivers whereby it seems to be when he's in his prime, or when the conditions are just right, he has a lot of pace, but as soon as things don't go right, in this case a little bit of damage on the car, plus also this circuit seemingly just losing a bit of track temperature. We'll show you the weather update shortly. Well, it does seem for Paul Sims, suddenly all that pace is falling away. They do both make the way past Charlie Morgan, who steps aside for the pair of them. A lap to put on him. But here comes Wood then, looking for potential moves. Going to go around the outside if he can of the Nando Horace Racing driver. And in towards Hawthorns they go. Dave Wood trying to go round, squeezing Sims as much as possible. But Paul Sims has got the right to fight for it. Now he's going to hold on the inside. Now will Paul Sims be able to get this done? He's going to fight it too while they go through Westfield. And as they come down towards what will be Dingle Dale, well, Dave Wood gets done the end, scoops around the outside, clears Sims just about. Lovely bit of brave driving there from the Briton in number 13. And will Paul Sims try and come back for it into Sterling? So we look back from the rear Woods car. No, not quite. And the drone boy, only the racing driver, makes the move happen as Elliot Lewis does come into the pits looking out my commentary booth window and confirms he had one more stop in the cards and will be his third and final stop. But to be fair, credit where it's due to Elliot Lewis. He has gone a very long time on that second stint, and boy, he is going to bring him back into the back end of the top 10 when he emerges, but he won't be too upset about it, given he has definitely given himself a good chance here, finishing inside the top 10, if not chasing down some places at the end. Dave Wood there confirming he's made the move versus Paul Sims, and well, the two drivers now starting to create a bit of a gap to each other as Charlie Morgan looks to go through, but wipers on there. I thought that was rain falling for a brief moment, but no, it was just the puddle splash from Dave Wood's car onto both Sims and Lewis. I was going to say, are we getting rain literally in the final 15 minutes? Because if so, well, that rain will definitely throw a huge curveball. And being on the rear of the picture, Richard Phillips right now, really trying to chase down Charlie Morgan here for 10th place. And well, Phillips has been flying these last couple of laps, gaining 2 to 3 seconds a lap on Morgan. Well, I don't know where this pace has come from, but the RPM Simsport driver is on the attack, so it's not over yet for the scrap for what is the final top 10 spot. Meanwhile, Elliot Lewis has re-emerged. He's re-emerged in 9th place as the Team Elliot Lewis driver, and we're just carrying on here in a bit of a lonely road, but as he has to try and keep himself entertained, make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. That's always the hardest part of the racing. We've definitely got some good battles cooking up here. Dave Wood versus Paul Sims, and essentially a lap down, but right behind him on the road, Morgan versus Phillips. As we see Charlie Morgan there trying to find his way on the inside of Paul Sims, trying to send a message there really to the Nando Horace Racing driver, which is, I kind of need you to get a move on because I've got a growing problem behind me, and the problem is this man, Richard Phillips, who we ride on board with as he heads down towards the final corner. But as he comes through the bend this time, well, for Richard Phillips, the problem he's got here is now he's in a 3-car pack that's become a 4-car pack with his inclusion. Well, in the draft, picking up plenty of an overspeed, certainly. But now he's got to deal with the fact that he's going to lose a bit of front-end turning on the car. Plus, the amount of overspeed he will carry into these corners, he'll have to brake earlier and make sure he does shave off that speed a little bit sooner. As Morgan again looks to the inside of Sims. Now, he's going to go for it, is Charlie Morgan this time. Dave Wood will be grateful for this. Sims will not. And now Phillips has got to think, okay, how do I get involved here? Well, the first thing, he's got to try and make his way around the outside of Paul Sims. Paul will defend against him here. And it is the two drivers who are lapped down, really trying to unlap themselves from Sims. And, well, Richard Phillips could not get that done. So that's going to cost him time. So put a bit more pressure on his race. As at the front, Kieran Sharp, 1.5 seconds of the gap between him, Davidson and Pike. So that gap is coming down. Last lap, 4 attempts was gained there by Davidson. I think we're on for a freeway fight. The three drivers have started right from the back of the field. They're going to be right at the front of the field come the end of this. 12 minutes to go, and for them, they're going to lap number 64. I suspect we've got another 7 laps remaining, including this one. And Kieran Sharp right now is definitely going to be feeling the heat that's growing behind him, as Davidson and Pike, well, they've got a difficult task to do here, which is they need to work together for a little bit longer to get close enough. Until that final lap, they won't want to fight each other at all, because otherwise Kieran Sharp will be gifted an opportunity to just break away with that win. But this is the hard part between these drivers right now. It's that temptation to fight versus not fighting. But we had a bit of an off for Paul Sims, and he's yielded what is there to none other than the car, I do believe, making a lap back on him, and that is Richard Phillips. So Paul Sims had a bit of an error, and suddenly Charlie Morgan is going to find he's under a bit more pressure here, as now he has the man who's battling with him, albeit both of them are lapped down, but they are in company to each other. But what exactly has happened to Paul Sims? Well, we do get a quick replay of that shortly, but before that, let's see what Richard Phillips can do here. Heading to Paddock Hill Bend, looks at the inside of Morgan, decides not to go for it, goes to the switchback instead. Jumping on board there, looking down over the front of the car, the 707 really trying to get a move on here, but Charlie Morgan simply holds back and stymies all the momentum of Phillips just for a brief moment. But with that, we then do head back, and let's find out then what happened at that moment for Paul Sims. So this was Sims making his way up for Dingle Dale into Sheen Curve, carrying all the speed. In fact, he had already been passed there, so I think he might have let the place go, or let the on-track place go, and that would have been going through Hawthorns into Westfield. But Back to live pictures we go. Hold up a second. We've got a new leader here. That's Tom Davidson who's taken over the lead of the race. Where on earth has he found his way past Kieran Sharp? Well, they're going to go side by side in towards turn 1. And suddenly the fight is on here for the final 10.5 minutes. And so the top 3 drivers all getting ready to fight each other. And Andrew Pike says, well, how about I make it 3 wide around the outside? To which Kieran Sharp says, not on your life are you going to do that. As Tom Davidson just simply holds the inside there. We're grateful for the pressure that Pike's putting on to Sharp. But Sharp's going to come back here in towards the Graham Hill bend. That's not going to work out. But as they roar the way through, we have had an incident for Charlie Morgan literally just moments ago after talking about their growing battle between Morgan and Phillips. That's handed the position of 10th place to Phillips. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but it's all kicking off here with very little time remaining in the race. And right now, Andrew Pike getting ready for a run, but how quickly is he going to run his way in between the 2 in front of him? Here they go down the back section. And going in towards what we Hawthorns. And what's going to be Kieran Sharp on the outside. Tom Davis on the inside here trying to retake the lead is Sharp. And Andrew Pike just watching on right now. They touch as they come out and on towards the Derek Minzer straight. And Pike looking around the outside here. Can he get it done? He will try to get a bit more momentum. But Kieran Sharp in the end, well, Tom Davidson there being a bit conservative. He could have forced Sharp out a bit wider than that if he wanted to. And Pike right now finds himself on the outside into Sheen versus Davidson. That's never going to happen. Not at that position. So therefore he backs off immediately. And Andrew Pike, to be fair, a veteran of racing at the Brands Hatch circuit on the simulator and knowing exactly where you can go for the moves and when you can go for the moves into the places you shouldn't go for them. And Pike just waiting up behind. But onto another lap they go. And as they do, we take a quick look back at exactly how Davidson got past Sharp in the first place. And it was a bit of a slow run there coming out of Stirling's Bend for Kieran Sharp. And in fact, it wasn't the best of runs. And Sharp in the end having to tuck back in. I wonder if perhaps he'd just breached track limits to a degree and therefore lost a lot of momentum. So that's definitely what it looked like, as we also had this for Charlie Morgan. Now this was Morgan having it all go wrong. Only moments later, rear of the car letting go at Surtees. He caught it once, caught it twice, but he couldn't quite catch it thrice. And a big knock to the barrier there and a straight toe to the pit lane. Going nowhere else for Charlie Morgan, and an understandable moment, not the way we wanted it to go. You've got to feel for the man. But meanwhile, we come back to our 3 drivers who have all got their individual plans. And well, coming through Surtees Bend this time. 8.5 minutes to go. Lap 66. A few more after this one. It's not over yet. And right now, here is going to be Kieran Sharp looking for a move around the outside of Tom Davidson, trying to power his way past. As they go up the rise, we'll see why they're going to enter here. Sharp all the way the outside, around the outside, if he can do it. But understandably here, this is all going to be positioned. This will be jockeying right now. And then on the final lap, it really will be elbows out. And that's where position is going to matter most. Davidson not back off on the inside. Sharp refusing to back off on the outside here. It's absolute poetry in motion between these two. Closest battle on circuit. And we will stay with it to the end. As we say hello again to Charlie Morgan in the YouTube chat, who says rest in pieces for himself. And an unfortunate incident for yourself, Charlie. Sweet it one way, then the other. And 12 minutes of repairs. So sadly, it means we won't be seeing Charlie Morgan finish this race. Although if he stays at the pit line, I think he will be classified as a finisher given the distance covered. But in the meantime, Charlie, you can tune in, much like all of us here, to this absolute epic of a fight. 3-way fight at the front as Kieran Sharp actually gets the move done there and Tom Davidson in the run towards clearways. And here comes Pike around the outside. So suddenly, Tom Davidson loses the lead and Pike says, what are you doing, Tom? We need to get back towards Kieran or I'm going to have to make a move myself. And I think Tom Davidson right now will try to regroup. Although saying that, we've also got Dave Wood rapidly closed up to the back of John Metcalf here, with Paul Sims a bit further back by comparison. So we could have a fight on for 6th place here as well. The only racing drivers need a swear jar machine, still ahead of the drone boy. But exactly who's going to come out ahead here, as it's going to be a bit of a drift sideways in towards Sheen Curve for Metcalf. So I think the tyres are starting to feel a bit of wear, as are the brakes. So Metcalf's got to be careful there, doesn't want to make too many mistakes. Back to the leading trio we go, and they glide the way through the corners at the moment. And a better run out of Surtees this time for Davidson. But just simply running the rear bumper of Sharp, looking down towards the Pilgrim's Drop. He's going to try and go around the outside. So suddenly, attacker becomes defender, and the roles are reversed. And it's going to be around the outside. Davidson goes, but can he hold it all the way outside? Sharp was able to do so, but right now for Tom Davidson, he's got fully ahead. So Kieran Sharp actually backs off there rather than fighting it all the way into Westfield Bend. Very different attitude between the two drivers. Kieran Sharp willing to take the risks when he is attacking, but meanwhile when he's defending, not willing to do so. And I wonder whether perhaps he's worried about the fact if he tries to defend too hard, he's going to lose out versus Andrew Pike. It's a valid theory, just for the simple reason that Davidson being the aggressor here to temper Pike being behind him, but Sharp may not feel as though he can hold Pike back as easily. Here they come then around the final corner. 6 minutes left on the clock as they head towards the timing line. And Sharp, Davidson and Pike. Well, Andrew Pike pushing Davidson along. Sharp getting the better run off of Clearways with the cut back to the inside. But Andrew Pike still being just someone who's promoting both of them. He's being a bit of an antagonist rather than trying to become a protagonist to this race. And we're coming up the hill out of Paddock Hill Bend. This time it's Sharp who doesn't quite get the run. Davidson gets the better move on the outside. It's too wide all the way round. Davidson does try to take it back here, heading in towards Graham Hill. And the Paul Walsh Fan Club driver right now braking as late as he dares. Takes a bit of grass with him for it. Using what is the stripped off grass there, which makes an effective entry curve. Not much width to be fair, only about, I'd say, 50 centimetres if that. And Kieran Sharp still trying to go around the outside. But on Surtees, around the outside, well, that's not going to be easy to do. But he does get the better X out the corner on that outside line. And Davidson right now staying with him. Andrew Pike there. But whilst they fight, we must come back to this fight between John Metcalf and Dave Wood. As Dave Wood in the white and red car looks to the inside, looking to try and take the 6th place on Metcalf. And here they go, Dave Wood on the inside, in towards Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to beat Metcalf on the brakes there quite comfortably, despite the tight line. Absolutely nails it under braking, and Dave Wood will take 6th place there. But does Metcalf go back on the inside here for the Need to Swear Jar Onid Racing team? The answer is no, he can't quite, as the drone boy driver from Onid Racing seals the deal there and stands the test of the moves being made. So we come back to the battle of the leaders for a brief moment. No rain falling. The rain that was potentially promised has not materialised in. The forecast has got away, but Sunny is free wide here now, going towards Clearways. It's going to be Pike on the outside, Sharp on the inside, and in the middle is Tom Davidson. And well, I get the feeling right now Tom Davidson may be doing his best Ralph Wiggum impression of I'm in danger when you're in the middle of a freeway fight like this. But they're going to be free wide again as they make their way towards the timing line. 3 laps to go here by my mathematics. We go on to lap number 69, and Tom Davidson does squeeze his way back ahead. Andrew Pike on that outside decides to back off once more. Does not want to risk it too soon. He'll risk it right at the end. You can be certain of that. And well, keep in mind they're 28 seconds ahead of Yuri Shura, who's running 4th place at the moment. Any which way this battle goes, well, I think no matter how much time they take out of each other, as long as they don't cause a huge incident, I think it's going to be between these 3 all the way to the end. But Pike falls back into 3rd, gets him ready to attack again as Davidson weaving there to defend. He'll get away with that once of the straight, but he can't make a repeat habit of it, but he goes deep. And so that gives Kieran Sharp the lead back now. And so Pike comes through as well. So it's now going to be Davidson down to 3rd, Pike up to 2nd, and Sharp into lead. Not a mistake that Tom Davidson wants to make there, just simply outbroke himself into Surtees. I think that might be tiredness on the legs there, plus also brake pads that are getting a bit too warm, and brake discs with it. And well, continually back and forward, no doubt about it. As we say hello to Hao Mansu, who's enjoying the great racing from the top 3. Indeed, taking the words right out of our mouths, good sir, as they come through. But meanwhile, we come back to Metcalf and Wood, the fight for 6th place. And Dave Wood holding on right now. Metcalf has not been dropped per se. They do have RPMF Simsports Richard Phillips glued to the back of them. But remember, he is a lap down. He could unlap himself. But right now, he's got no real pressure to do so. And nobody really to play with if he does so. So he might actually just sit behind here and make sure he seals the deal for that 10th place in this race. But from them, as we do see a better run out of Surtees there for Dave Wood. So he opens that gap to John Metcalf now up to 6/10 of a second. Let's come back to the leaders. They go on to the penultimate lap here at Brands Hatch in this 2-hour event as run by the Sim Racing Collective in collaboration with Onid Community Racing. Kieran Sharp leads right now as he makes one through. He's led for so long, but there's been some drama. Oh, Yuri Shura's gone around there. And where's Max Moron? There he is. He's going to close up the gap quite quickly. It's not going to be enough to get into 4th by default, but this could open up the opportunity. In fact, it will give him the chance in towards Clearways. And Moron's going to go around the outside of Shura. Turns in, but Shura throws the car into the corner there and says to him, there's no way you're taking this off of me. And as they make the way onwards, well, Shura's made an error, but make no mistake, right now the fight for 4th is very much on. So they go on to the penultimate lap as well. All the fights happen right at the end of the race. It's always the way in an endurance race. And Yuri Shura there on the inside, keeping Ron at bay. Ron goes to the switchback, only to find a face full of Shura's car. Meanwhile, back to the front we go. And as we can see that Andrew Pike making a mistake and losing that 2nd place to Tom Davidson for a moment. In fact, Davidson found his way past both of them there. So I get the feeling with all the fighting that's going on, Kieran Sharp being relegated backwards. And it's going to be Tom Davidson who now leads, Andrew Pike into 2nd, and Kieran Sharp down into 3rd place. Not the way they've wanted it to go, particularly for Kieran Sharp. And slipping backwards. And meanwhile, the fight for 4th, it's Yuri Shura versus Max Moron. They go into Surtees Bend. And we're defending every step of the way is Shura at the moment. And then we do have the fight for 5th still on, well, the fight for 6th still on between Dave Wood and John Metcalf. Metcalf not exactly being dropped. But we come back to your leaders, and we will try to give equal coverage to all 3 fights where we can. But the entertainment right at the front, of course, the prime entertainment here has 1 more lap to go. 40 seconds left on the clock as they head across the start-finish straight. And Tom Davidson right now leads by only 800ths of a second. White flag being waved. This is going to be 71 out of 71 laps here today. And Andrew Pike immediately looks to the move, but Kieran Sharp on the inside as they come through, takes all the curves. So Sharp wants to tick off Pike first. But this is going to buy Davidson a bit of time here. He's got to be decisive in making this move. Pike right now outbreak Sharp in towards Druid's Bend, but it's going to be all for naught here as they're going to be 2 wide coming down as they get ready to go into that braking zone. Tom Davidson being allowed a bit of space as Andrew Pike going more defensive than offensive here. He's going to glue himself. He doesn't want to be beaten by Sharp, or Sharpie as he's known. And right now, Mr. Fish, as Andrew Pike takes the nickname on the community, well, he's having to hold on here. But whilst it's the battle between the Fish and the Sharp, it's going to be meanwhile Davidson, who's absolutely storming away here for Climax Race in half a second. That's a huge gap compared to what it's previously been, and he may be safe at this point because Kieran Sharp right now being made to wait. But Yuri Shura versus Max Ron up in the Druids as well for 4th place. Shura going absolutely defensive as humanly possible, and Ron looking every which way for this move. He tried it earlier on today here at this very corner. It didn't work out, but right now they keep the battling peaceful. Meanwhile, back to the front we go. Clock goes to 0, and Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp still fight each other. Tom Davidson, 4 attempts, comes 3 attempts. They make the way through Sheen Curve, and right now you can see there that Andrew Pike using all the stops, using all the road on the curb, but Tom Davidson and staying safe. Gap is 4 attempts. They exit Sterling's Bend. I somehow get the feeling that for Tom Davidson right now, all he's got to do is make this final quarter right. He does so, and as they make the way to the timing line, Kieran Sharp runs wide. Andrew Pike falls behind, and for Tom Davidson, for Climax Racing, it's victory after 2 hours with Andrew Pike, your runner-up. Kieran Sharp completed the top 3, but who is going to be 4th? Well, the answer is it's going to be Yuri Shura, because Max Ron has picked up a black flag for instant points. Therefore, he were a post-race time penalty added, even if he finished there to Yuri Shura on the road. We believe he ran off the road, and there was a small touch between the two of them, and that's led to the difference. But let's see them home as well, as we have had to finish a lap down. Richard Phillips, 2 laps down, in fact, for RPM Sport. Well done to him for getting to the finish, and then we will see your battle for 4th place head to line. Max Ron heads into the pit lane, and well, that's going to cost him even more time, as I think there's a bit of rain on the camera there. So the rain arrives literally as we see the checker flag. Yuri Shura comes over in 4th place. Max Ron, he will be classified, I believe, as 5th initially, but as Dave Wood comes through the final quarters here to take 6th place on the road, is he going to be promoted there up to what will be 5th place for Max Ron? The answer is no. Ron does serve that drive-through penalty and the effective time with it, so Dave Wood 6th, John Metcalf 7th, and then we will see Paul Sims come through shortly as a bit of drizzle starts to fall on the circuit, particularly through what will be the final few quarters, and it'll be on none other than the southern end of the circuit, and Paul Sims comes through in 8th place, and then your last lead lap finisher is going to be Elliot Lewis as he makes his way through, and the team Elliot Lewis driver, well, he's had a bit of a tough race, but to be fair, starter length is finishing in 9th, so some places gained, and that's always a positive story. We did lose Charlie Morgan for this race, and well, he has finished in the pit lane due to damage on the car, and as we see Elliot Lewis coming through, then give a round of applause to this man, ladies and gentlemen. Nazary Nish, the Dobry Renault driver from Ukraine, had a power cut, and that stopped him from going racing, but he rejoined, even though he'd be multiple laps down, finishes 2 laps down, but finished on the road in 11th place. Goodness me, what an end to the race. But we do have some questions that we need some answers to before we get those official race results, including what exactly happened to Max Ron right at the end that triggered the black flag for him. And here's the replay for that firstly. And I think this was going on to that final lap. So the Sim Motorsport Endurance driver looking for the potential move, tried to go for it from Paddock Hill Bend up into Druids, and I think he'll feel as though he was forced there to take to the grass. But Yuri Shura closing the door as late as possible, and we believe that is what triggered enough instant points to take him over the drive-through limit. So Max Ron, they're trying to go for a decisive move to the inside, but in the end, running out of time to do so, had to go to the grass, and Yuri Shura just refusing to give an inch, let alone a mile. Going very defensive there, and Max Ron afterwards losing out, albeit did they see any more battling afterwards? In fact, they did for a brief moment. There's Yuri Shura getting it wrong, coming out of Surtees Bend. So we're going to stay with their final lap replay all the way to the end. It's only fair to do so. And as they made the way up towards Hawthorns, it was going to be too wide. They came through that right-hander at turn number 5 then. Sure on the inside, Moran on the outside. And I get the feeling in the end there is a touch between the two of them. That is what gives the drive-through penalty to Max Moran for instant points. I think they'll be treated as a racing instant by the stewards. It was just simply that touch, and that was what sealed the deal. This is what it looked like on board for Max Moran, trying to go for the move around the outside. And the Sim Motorsport Endurance driver definitely enjoying the battle. And, well, did he turn a bit too soon, or was that understeer from Shearer? And in the end, I think it's going to be half a dozen to one, and what is 6 for another, and 2 just converging it and making that contact. But that's what ended Max Moran's race for 4th, and forced him to have to settle for 5th. But then we also did have, what was this instant for Andrew Pike on lap 70, and this juggled the order of your top 3 to a degree. So what exactly happened here? Because Kieran Sharp was leading on the penultimate lap, and there it was. So in the end, Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp having contact, and that enabled Tom Davidson to come through, and that was the moment that Tom Davidson took control of the race, and Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp started to fight each other all the way to the end, going on to that final lap. That was on lap 70, your penultimate lap, but that explains the story. We wanted to know how Tom Davidson had got back into lead, and that's how the Climax Racing driver did it. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see then, Nazari Nish enjoying a little bit of playing in the gravel, and with it the rain, well, let's take a look to the scenic view and bring you those race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, in the end, after a grand total, a very impressive course, what was none other than 2 hours of racing here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It was victory for Climax Racing, and indeed taking that victory, Tom Davis in the end by 3/10 of a second at line ahead of the Sim Racing Collective's Harden Long Manshaft, as run by Andrew Pike. Then it was the Porsche fan club, Kieran Sharp there taking home at 3rd place, with the trio having that brilliant fight, and it was interesting to see how the strategies played out, when then Kieran Sharp gaining ground by gambling by pitting under the safety car and coming out ahead by 2.5 seconds, but the teamwork between Tom Davis and Andrew Pike bringing them close enough to battle with Sharp, and in the end, Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pike with that contact on lap 70, enabling Tom Davison to take the lead, and he would never relinquish it for the final lap. Owned Racing making it 4th and 5th there, with the sweat in the form of Yuri Shura, bringing on home that result, and we do have confirmation that Max Run has been demoted down the order due to the time penalty from what was his black flag, so he actually has been demoted down to 8th place there, and well, it was Owned Racing's drone boy, so none other than Dave Wood being promoted to round off the top 5. In 6th, it was Owned Racing's Needs a Swear Jar, and that was none other there than John Metcalf, with Nando Horace Racing, I should say, Paul Sims. He would take home 7th place, and then we did have Sim at Motorsport Endurance Max Ron, who put on an absolutely stellar drive today, but sadly, due to some incidents and also a black flag right at the end, demoted to 8th. Team Elliott Lewis taking home that 9th place there, and Richard Phillips combined with none other than John Shorter for the RPS Simsport team. Despite the car having to park up in the grass midway through the race, they did finish it, and they were in 10th place, 2 laps down. There's also 2 laps down there to none other than Dobry Ranok, and that was in the form of Nazari Nish, bringing home that 11th place. And then we did see retirements for Owned Racing Stance Nation. That was Charlie Morgan, who in the end of that late instant, a 12-minute repair, Sim unable to continue the race, but he will be classified as 12th. And it will be non-finishers as classified for firstly DHD Racing's David Drury due to an issue with his pedals in the car. Also to Luke Webb there for Team Luke Webb. Also Harry Fletcher with a pedal issue as well. That recurring pedal issue coming back once again for the Team Harry Fletcher driver, who could have been in with a chance of the win. And the pole sitter as well, we should point out in qualifying. MVG Motorsports Jay Walsh retiring, and also retiring to Owned Racing's gold team in the form of Ben Holmes, and also Mickey Ford for FD Racing. They're the last of your drivers and the first of the retirees. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of all of the finishers and also those non-finishing. And with that, well, we look to the scenic view still, and with the rain falling, well, it's crazy that the rain only fell literally as we saw the checker flag, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And whilst our racing is over, our broadcast is not, because coming up very shortly will be our post-round interviews, or post-race interviews, we should say, while volunteer drivers. We'll get a couple of those in today, most likely. So therefore, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time to catch up with some of our drivers. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to kick off your post-race interviews for today after our 2-hour event here at Brands Hatch. An exciting event, no doubt about it. And we start off with a driver who we spoke to just before we did go racing today, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Nazari Nish. Nazari, welcome once again. Good to catch up with you. What a race, albeit a race where technical issues did hold you back a little bit.
Well, yeah, it did, but I still fought back. I still did.
Oh, 100%. It was good to see you get back out there despite the technical issues and finish the race. That's what it's all about, having some fun. But let's focus a little bit then on the start of the race. We saw you start in 9th, but found yourself right in the thick of the fighting early on, enjoying some good battling with the likes of Jay Walsh.
Hold on. Can you please repeat that? The connection was not so good, I should say. It dipped.
No worries. What I was saying is, start of the race, plenty of fighting, found yourself battling with the likes of Jay Walsh.
Well, yeah, kind of. That was quite a bit of a, I don't know, a cluster. You know what? The start of the race was a bit chaotic.
Oh, indeed. Always a bit of chaos at the start of the race, but eventually things did calm down and you found yourself battling quite often with Ben Holmes, and the two of you definitely touched a couple of times.
Yeah.
And when in the end it didn't quite work out for Ben, although he did have a very spectacular pit entry, for yourself, you're able to survive those incidents, and it all looked quite good until the power cut.
Well, one thing I want to share. When the power went out, I was literally miserable. I was so freaking miserable that I was literally preparing the whole week for this moment. And then the power just went out. But luckily, I was able to get back into the race and finish. Okay, what is that? Well, 11.
Yep, you're still able to finish, and I feel for you. I think everyone feels for you with regards to putting all that practice in, only to have the power go out. But that happens. We still got to see you, though, carrying on, not giving up. I mean, that's true racer spirit.
That's the Ukrainian determination, my friend.
Oh, indeed. Absolutely love the determination. And, well, I mean, you were talking about the rain. The rain did come. It literally came as the checkered flag fell.
Yeah, I was literally expecting the rain. I'm waiting for GTA 6 to finally drop. And it... and yeah, the rain came, but that was the end of the race. Like...
Oh, it was unfortunate the rain didn't come because it could have changed things. But still, you've had fun out there by the sounds of things. And, well, I think you've already mentioned that. Would we ever consider doing an MX-5 Endurance Championship?
Yeah. I wanted to ask that thing. I want to ask that question. Will there be an MX-5 Endurance Championship?
Well, we don't. To be fair with you, I don't know what's planned at the moment in the long term. We have already got some plans for an upcoming championship, which will be revealed a bit later on in this broadcast. But what I can say is that we'll definitely take your feedback on board, because we love MX-5s here at TSRC. So do stay tuned, because I'm sure we'll do something MX-5 related again in the near future. But just as I get ready to let you go, Nazri, just one last question for yourself. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast today?
I mean, I would like to give a shout out to basically everyone for an absolutely magnificent race. Absolutely everyone in the race deserves a shout out.
Oh, well, your fellow drivers will definitely appreciate it. Nazari, we'll leave it there. It's been brilliant catching up with you after the racing. Sad you had the power cut, but good to see you finish the race under your own steam. Well done on doing so, and hopefully we get to see you on the track again in the future.
Hopefully, I'm looking forward to racing with you too.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
like,
Would-
like for real.
Oh, 100%. I'm sure you'll be racing with us very soon, but until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.
So, thank you a lot. Have an absolutely awesome day.
So here now, ladies and gentlemen, from Nazari Nish, and we do apologise for the slight intermittent connection there with regards to him, with regards to being able to talk to him over the interview, but I think we got there in the end, and to be fair, a lovely gentleman, no doubt about it, for the Dobry Renault driver. I mentioned there the fact, true Ukrainian spirit, as he went racing today, and, well, never gave up. We also saw him, of course, in that incredible 3 into 4 wide early on in the race, and, well, the number 59 driver absolutely giving it its all, finding himself battling with Ben Holmes. He didn't really want to elaborate too much on the chaos that unfolded between himself and the Owned Racing Gold Team driver. Completely understandable. But talking out there, never giving up, enjoying it, and well, he'd definitely love to see more MX-5 racing here at the Sim Racing Collective in the future. And, well, I don't think we can essentially not oblige him with that, and I think there will be some more racing to come at some point, although we'll have to factor that into our plans. But also talking out of the fact the rain never quite came, and it only came at the finish. He would have liked to see it come a bit sooner, but that's the way it's gone. But what a gentleman, and hopefully we'll definitely get to see him on the grid very soon. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now get ready for our next interview, and it's none other than what will be with one of our drivers who finished a bit further up the field as we get ready to bring him on in. And I think we are going to be hearing from none other than Tom Davidson, unless I'm mistaken, the man who in the end took victory today. So give us a brief moment. We'll be coming to him. We'll get to hear his story about how he's come all the way through from 17th, not qualifying, of course, to taking an absolute monster victory. As here we go. And, well, Tom Davidson now joins me in the interview room. Tom, good afternoon to you, and, well, what an end to the race. What a race from yourself. I mean, coming all the way through from the back of the field with no qualifying lap to take the victory. It wasn't an easy race, but you made it happen.
Yes, good afternoon, Paul. Yeah, thank you very much. I think I got very lucky there with some help from my teammates getting the win at the end of the event, but it was enjoyable. It was good fun, even though we had quite a small grid. There was some good racing going on, I think, throughout the field.
Oh, indeed. Some fantastic racing, like you say, throughout the field. Of course, no qualifying lap set for yourself. I think that's all part of the gentleman's agreement between TSRC staff members, not to set a lap, but just come through the field. And at first, the three of you, so yourself, Andrew and Kieran, all working together, but it looked as though you were always at the forefront of the trio.
I think I was just at the front as we started making our way through. You've always got to be respectful to people in front of you if you're going to start at the back like that. And in a 2-hour race, there's really no point in rushing through. So we just took our time a little bit at the beginning of the race and started racing each other towards the end.
Well, definitely a smart approach there. Now, of course, with regards to the strategy here, we definitely saw there was a risk of rain, but it seemed to be a very light chance, and it only rained literally as you were crossing the finish line. Did you worry about that at all in strategy, or was it just simply do the 2-stop and then worry about the rain should it come?
The only concern about the rain was knowing that Sharpie had managed to save significantly more fuel than both me and Fish in the early part of the race, and therefore would have a massive advantage if we needed to make a call on whether or not to take rain tyres. No, as it progressed, the percentage of rain reduced throughout the race, and it wasn't a problem in the end, so not a concern at all.
Oh, understandable. Low concern there. But like you mentioned, I mean, that gamble under the safety car from Kieran Sharp to essentially come in and take what became a third stop in the end, or an additional stop. I mean, did it catch you by surprise thinking, what's he doing?
Maybe a little bit by surprise, and there may be a couple of groans from Fish and myself about, well, this seems a little bit too try-hardy for a very casual race. But no, it worked out very well for him, and it made things interesting towards the end of the race. So it was a good shout by him to do that.
Now, of course, towards the end of the race, the brilliant three-way battle, and we saw it be a constant back and forth between the few of you, but on the penultimate lap, a bit of an interesting moment, Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp, they battle their way down towards Pilgrim's Drop, make a bit of contact, and it opens up the door for yourself, and would you say that was the turning point, if you will, that enabled you to take the lead?
That was the thing that gave me the lead. There was a little bit of chatter about redressing position after that, which we couldn't quite work out coming into the next corner. But yeah, that's how things ended up finishing. So that's really what gave me the win in the end.
Well, it had to make the most of the opportunity, although with how close it was all the way to the end. I bet you're thinking to yourself after a grand total of 71 laps, just don't make any small mistakes now because we're almost there.
I think we were all making many mistakes throughout that. It was just don't make one big enough that gets you off the back of the train, because you really can't catch up when you got other people with a similar pace in front of you once you're out of it.
Well, that's the truth as well. These cars are able to run so close together, and will that draft you pick up? And I mean, obviously the Brands Hatch circuit, one of those ones that's definitely offered loads of close fighting. I have to ask the question, would you like to see a more longer race orientated MX-5 championship at TSRC?
I would certainly be interested in something like that, yes. If we could get the interest together for it, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, most definitely. We've seen plenty of exciting action today. And sort of looking ahead, of course, we've got coming up shortly a whole new championship. I haven't revealed what it is yet. We're going to give the grand reveal very shortly. But can we expect to see you on a TSRC grid very soon again?
Hopefully, yes. Yes, my time's been a little bit short recently for racing, but hopefully I'll have a little bit more time in the near future.
Oh, fantastic. We'd definitely love to see you on a grid again soon. But just before we do let you go, Tom, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on today's broadcast?
Oh, absolutely. As always, to TSRC and particularly Sharpie for the organisation. You did mention me in the staff group there earlier, but it's really down to Sharpie and Fish, a lot of this. They make it happen. And of course to you, Paul, for the commentary as always. Very good.
Well, it's my pleasure, Tom, and thank you for joining me in the interview. And actually, I have one final question to ask. It's a bit of a selfish question. Did you get bored of seeing my face following you around the circuit for the majority of the race?
No, but I did make the comment to Sharpie that I was likely to get punted whilst looking at your face. So it was quite funny. It was a brilliant livery.
Oh, fair play, fair play. Well, with that, Tom, we'll leave it there. Well done on taking the win in a brilliant and thrilling 2-hour event. We'll see you on the grid again soon. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
So hearing that, ladies and gentlemen, from Tom Davidson. And well, the number 7 driver today for Climax Racing, putting together a brilliant performance, no doubt about it, and bringing on home a win in the end, and talking out there the fact that he found himself at the head of the trio of the TSRC cars for himself, Kieran Sharp and also Andrew Pike. Only then, as the race really calmed down and they got to the front, that's when he could focus more on what's the strategy. But talked about there the fact the worry, less so the rain, more the worry that Kieran Sharp had been able to use the safety car in order to be able to extend what would be that middle double stint section, whereas meanwhile both Davidson and also Sharp had not been able to do so, and therefore it was going to come down to who could jump whom. But we saw in the end the trio came back together, and it led to a brilliant fight to the end, and that contact between Kieran Sharp and none other than Andrew Pike on the penultimate lap in the rundown towards Pilgrim Shop being the moment to enable Tom Davidson to take the lead, and with it run away to a victory. But that's sometimes the way it goes, and well, he'd definitely love to see some more MX-5 racing. We'd love to see him on the grid again. You never know what could happen, ladies and gents, because he's definitely proven today that he's rapid in an MX-5, at least at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But with that, I think that's all we've got time for in terms of our interviews, all the volunteers we've had come forth. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to. We've only had 2 interviews today. We first had an interview with none other than our Ukrainian driver. And to be fair, I've heard drivers with plenty of spirit in the past, but not quite the very positive spirit of none other than Nazary Anish. And, well, absolutely brilliant to chat to. And talking about the fact that even when he did have a power cut, he didn't give up. He got back in the car, carried on, and finished in 11th after starting 9th. And talked a bit about the chaos that unfolded in the early stage of the race. And in the end, it was a bit of a tough start to the race, a bit of a tough middle stint, but ended on a positive note. And we just heard from Tom Davidson, and the driver for Climax Racing, bringing on home the win, having started from the back of the field and having to play it smart. sensible and also absolutely on the limit with regards to pace in a freeway fight between himself and also Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pike. But with that, big thank you to them for joining me for interviews. It's been a blast catching up with a couple of our drivers. And, well, the big question is, what now? What is next time after this special event? Well, we definitely would like to say it. We recommend that you stay tuned for plenty more action at the Sim Racing Collective for the rest of 2026. We have got a lot more to come, no doubt about it. And, well, what exactly do we have planned or in the pipeline, many of you may be wondering? Well, we're very happy to unveil to you what is our all-new championship that's due to get underway very soon, and it is none other than this, our TCR World Tour, being run by the Sim Racing Collective in collaboration with Only Community Racing. 6 rounds, with all the TCR cars that are featured on iRacing being part of the grid, where it be the Audi RS3 LMS Evo, the Hyundai Elantra NTCR, the Hyundai Veloster NTCR, or the Honda Civic Type R FK8. They're there, and they will be there with 10% more power than usual and 50 kilograms less weight in the car. 2 races per round, 6 rounds, 15 minutes and 25-minute races, and it all begins on Monday, the 7th of September, 2026. That's right, we're going back to our front-engine, front-wheel drive roots at the Sim Racing Collective community. And, well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this calendar, you will not be disappointed, because on a weekly basis, we start off at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, then we make our way to the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, then to the Fuji International Speedway, so from Europe all the way to Japan, then all the way to the Oceania region for the Australian behemoth that is Mount Panorama circuit, known more commonly as Bathurst. Then we make it away to Mexico for the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and we'll be bringing the curtain down on Monday the 12th of October at the Sebring International Raceway. And to get on the grid for that, all you simply need to do is join the Sim Racing Collective SimGrid community and get on the Discord, and you can go racing in this championship. Indeed, spots are filling quickly, so make sure you get signed up today, because if you're a big Fast and Furious fanatic of touring car racing machines, TCR cars, you won't miss the opportunity to go racing over 6 rounds, 12 races, all in the pursuit of proving who is the king of the TCR car over the course of our World Tour for 2026, as brought to you by TSRC in collaboration with Onid. So definitely stay tuned, as we've got all that to come in what is the weeks ahead. And remember, that date where it all kicks off again being none other and then what is Monday the 7th of September, and that's going to be on Mondays. And our Wednesday series, well, that's coming to a close very soon, our IR04, or the Formula 4 cars, and we'll probably have something planned to replace it in due course, and we'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks, most likely. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today, so thank you very much for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast having you tune in to all the racing action here from the Sim Racing Collective in collaboration with Only Community Racing, 2 hours of Brands Hatch. We have been TSRC. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.